you all have a copy of the modified agenda before you. Are there any proposed revisions to the agenda as written? Any proposed revisions? Any proposed revisions? Alderman Corey.
If none of the aldermen have any objection, we received for our claims docket a bill from the city attorney, and unless there are any objections, would like to go ahead and add that to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Ms. Pro, will you come down here a minute, please? Yes, and, you know, I'm not one that's real comfort on last-minute items. Have you had an opportunity to look at that bill?
Actually, I have not.
Okay, because I don't have an objection, and in all due respect to the attorney, he mentioned to me when I arrived that it was there. But I always like for you and the mayor to look at these things before you hit the table. But in all due respect to the gentleman from Ford, I'm sure, but he just came here. But I trust your guidance on this. But in the future, hopefully, it won't hit the table until you and the mayor take a look at it. Okay?
Yes, sir, I appreciate that. I'm sorry I
Okay,
didn't
but
get
I'm gonna go ahead and vote for it tonight. But just take a look at it later, and if it's something that concerns you, it'll concern me. Okay?
appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, let me make sure I get the right spot.
Mr. Mayor, with that being said, I have no objection.
Where is that? It should be under city clerk. Do I have the latest? Oh, you put it under board business. Okay, so the proposed revision by Alderman Corey is to place item 10J on page 4 on the consent agenda. Is there any objection? Any objection by the members of the board? Seeing none, please note that item 10J on page 4 has been placed on the consent agenda. Are there any further proposed revisions by the members of the board? Any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as written is in order.
Mayor, I move that we adopt the agenda as enumerated.
Motion has been made by Alderman Corey to adopt the agenda as enumerated. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Is there any objection to the consent agenda as modified? Any objection to the consent agenda as modified? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. All right, we'll move into announcements and comments, and I have no comments tonight. Are there any comments by the members of the board?
May I be recognized, Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, is the police chief, not the police, fire chief here tonight? Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, let me ask you a question. Come on down a moment, please. Mr. Mann, just let me say this very respectfully, and you don't have to give me no in-depth explanation about the subject matter, but I want you to make sure, if you don't mind, please, sir, to make sure this is taken care of in a timely manner. I have had many constituents, family members, and others in the community who are deeply concerned about the lack of the conclusion of the investigation of that fatal fire that occurred on the 28th day of December of 2009 at the Academy Crossing Apartments. And it is my understanding that today is day 50. And I have seen news reports from some bureaucrat away from here, and has indicated that that the cause of the fire may be a cigarette or whatever, what have you. But you know, you're the fire chief. You know, this is your town. This is your fire department. And of course, I'm not trying to get involved in your investigation, but I'm bringing this here because every time I turn around, there are constituents and others who's asking me about it. So, you know, either we know the cause of the fire or we don't know the cause of the fire. You know, we need to put this thing to rest as soon as we can. It's been 50 days. I'm not an expert. I'm not a fireman. And I'm only interested in what you have to say. I'm not interested in what no bureaucrat from Jackson got to say about it. But, and we don't need to speculate on no cause of the fire. We don't need to guess, and we don't need to assume. So hopefully, you know, you'll give us some information soon. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. Just what, you know, let the chips fall where they may. But there are family members, the constituents, and others in the community want to know, and I want to know too, as an alderman and as a citizen, as a taxpayer. So hopefully you'll give this matter further due consideration and give us an answer with all deliberate speed, so we'll know the community wants some answers to this. And I think that you, as the fire chief, need to give the community a response as quickly as possible. So I just want to share that with you, and hopefully you'll be letting the mayor and the board know at some time, and the public mainly to know in the very near future. And of course, I want to get involved in your investigation. Don't sit here tonight and tell me what your investigation says, but the proper time, go through your channels, but just let us know what the findings are. So I'm not interested in you telling me at this moment what your investigation says, but I want to know what the conclusion is once you're done.
Yes, sir. Alderman Perkins, it's, at this time, I need to have a conversation with the city attorney.
Yes,
And it's
sir.
our hopes that we're going to be able to bring this to a conclusion no later than the end of this week.
Very good. Mr. Chief, I really appreciate your honesty and your sincerity. Thank you for your work here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Further comments by the members of the board? Are there any further comments by the members of the board? Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. Anyone wishing to make comment from the public may be recognized for a maximum of 3 minutes. Please approach the podium and introduce yourself prior to speaking.
Good evening to the mayor and board. Last year, 6 months,
Okay, Alvin, good
my
evening.
name is Alvin Turner Ward, yeah. Citizens are on edge. Lighting don't need to splash twice in the same place. We had, 9 people died the first time, fire broke out. The second time, the people that the apartment was burning, they weren't at home. But the citizens are on the edge, and they would like to. If this cannot be brought up in code, this need to condemn the whole country. Because if other people have to follow the rules, they feel like that we shouldn't make difference with others. And that's just citizen concern, because they're getting afraid of, every time turn around, fire, and very concerned that lighting is struck twice in the same place. The people also are concerned about our sidewalk. The 10th of this month, marked 5 years that I was struck by a vehicle. 5 years ago. So that people are concerned about sidewalks.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further citizen comments?
Good evening. I'm Chris Cosper, a citizen of Ward 5. I'm not a candidate for the school board position, but I would like to make a few comments on that. On December 24th, a report card was published in our paper listing the status of our school district. Now, this is a 7-tier scale, starting at top, star school, high performing, successful, academic watch, low performing, at risk of failing, and failing. We have 2 successful schools and 2 schools that are listed at risk of failing. That is 2 on a scale of 7. That's unacceptable. What is also unacceptable is we have a dropout rate of 26% in Starkville. 26% versus, for the state of Mississippi, 16%. We're not even good in our own state. What's frustrating when we look on the money side is we're doing less with more. And I said that correctly. Less with more. We spend $1,900 more per child in Starkville than the average of the state of Mississippi. Yet our performance is disappointing. When I found that my child goes to a school that's at risk of failing, I was very disturbed about that. So this calls into question the role of leadership. Now, this is a difficult and broad issue. This is no one person, this is no board. This is a community-wide issue that we need to address as a community, and that means everybody. However, this board and our school board do have important roles to play. That first role that you can play is tonight or some other night, appointing the right person. Yes, sir.
Just 1 minute.
Speed up. Is appointing the right person to fill the vacant position. That person needs to have a sense of urgency and a sense that things need to change. And I would take the time as a board that you need to ensure that you have the right person. It takes 2 or 3 board meetings. Please spend the time to do it. The second thing I would do as a board is I would invite the 4 remaining members of the current school board in to visit with you. And I would like to hear an explanation of their plan to improve this district, or I would ask for their resignation. It is time for change, and its time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cosper. Further citizen comments?
Good evening to the board. Good evening to our mayor. Also, I would just like to say this month, as we all know, is Black History Month. Much hasn't been said, too much hasn't been said about it. But at this time, I would just like to recognize the 2 members of our board. And I would like to tell them thank you during Black History, and also Ms. Marquita Outlaw who's sitting there. I would just like to tell them, thank you for what you do for our city, and we appreciate you. And not only we appreciate all of y'all, but you understand that this is Black History Month, and I would just like to say thank you for all that you do. And another thing I would like to say is a department that has been strongly working, and I would like to say if these men would come by my house sometime, I would get very mad, and that's the sanitation department. I want you to know, these guys are really on the job. And if you look out and see your trash, and you know it's strolled everywhere, but you know trash day is, is here. Some put it out before time, but these guys take care of us. And I would just like to say to the sanitation department, to Mr. Lord, keep on doing the job that you're doing also. And this concludes my Black History moment.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. Further citizen comments? Are there any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none, we'll move to public appearances, and we have 3 public appearances scheduled tonight. The first public appearance is by Becky Wilkes from the Red Cross. Either one.
I wanted to take this opportunity to give you an update. It's not our annual report time, but in light of the things that came through our chapter, recently the county crossing fire, but since I'm here, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the update on where we are, Red Cross-wise. We spent over $50,000 in disaster assessment this year. That's a very unusual year for us. You can see that in our Tippecanoe County, we've served 58 people, had 9 fatalities. Webster County, we've served 9 people, Choctaw 9, Weston County 19, and 1 fatality there. Services to armed forces, that's up this year because the National Guard troop is deployed. So we had 49 cases there. And we continue with our health and safety participation with getting toward 500 people now that have been trained in CPR first aid through our program. The Academy Crossing fire, Mayor Wiseman asked that donations be made to the Tippecanoe County chapter of the Red Cross, and we handled the funeral arrangements then, or work with the families on those. We got $37,455.86 in donations to the best of my counting here. There were also accounts set up at different banks. There were several jars put on store counters around. Some of those we had nothing to do with. If it came to us, if the store called and said, we've got money here for y'all for the funeral fund, then we picked it up. But in some cases, that went directly to the families. If it came to us and it was earmarked for a specific family, we put it toward that family's funeral expense first. Mr. Vernon West gave us a wonderful discount and also took up money there for that account. And we wound up paying him $28,575. Now, for 9 funerals, that is an excellent price. you've had to deal with the funeral price lately, you know what a deal that is, and he worked very hard to make that happen. We had other expenses for the Gillespie family. They asked for reimbursement for clothing, for the grave digging, for the church charges. The grave digging and graves were donated in another cemetery for the other 8 victims, so there was no charge there. In addition, there were 8 monuments that were provided there by Bonner Monument Company, and we only paid $100 apiece for those. Columbus Marble Works, we paid $396 for the Gillespie marker. The difference being that the 8 markers had to be flat to the ground so they could be mown over in the cemetery where the plots were donated, and the other plot, it's an upright marker, and that's the difference in the cost. We also paid rent for 2 months for relocating the people who were right next door. So that's a total of $31,244.37 that was spent, that came in through the appeal for donations. Now, it wasn't just money that came in. We had people out collecting money. We had volunteers who stood at Piggy Wiggly and other stores and asked for donations. We had a difference then of $6,211.49, and we designated that for future fire victims. And it will be spent according to the National Red Cross standards, which, as you may or may not know, are if they come to us within the first 72 hours after a fire, we can put them in a hotel for up to 3 days, 3 nights. We can provide food and clothing. And other than that, we just provide vouchers to Salvation Army and Palmer Home and our partner agencies in the United Way. Questions?
I guess before asking for questions or comments from the board, let me just say that I had the experience through the Red Cross response to the Academy Crossing fire tragedy to experience what goes on at the Red Cross firsthand. And I came away incredibly impressed at what you and a very, very selfless group of people do to aid those in relief of when a disaster has occurred. And I just want to say thank you. Your response was a credit to this community.
All right, now let me point out that y'all only give me $5,000 a year, and you see how far that goes. But the thing that makes this chapter so successful is the wonderful team of volunteers and the people who called and said, if I can do anything, let me know. Mrs. Keenum came and answered the phone for us one day. We had people who said, if I can't do anything else, I can hold a bucket and ask for money. And it was a very heartwarming experience to see the community step up like that. And you'll also be interested to know that people carry a warm feel for Starkville with them when they leave. We got checks from Michigan and New Mexico from people that said, I used to be with the university, and I saw this in the news, and I wanted to send something. And then we got checks from other states for people who said, I can't do anything about it, I saw it in the paper, here's $15. It was just really heartwarming to see that people cared about somebody they didn't even know about in a town that they had never even visited.
Questions and comments from the members of the board. Alderman Carter.
Go with you, Parker, with Mayor Wise, and just thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts. And I know this, I'm almost speechless, but just again, just thank you for everything you do with this and with your agency.
We appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all.
Job well done. Thank you. All right, our next scheduled public appearance is by Judge Rodney Favor from the Municipal Court.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Let me start by saying it's an honor to present this report to you as your municipal judge. And on behalf of the Municipal Court, we are honored to serve you and the citizens of Starkville. Although we cannot replace Judge Ishii, we certainly haven't. We have tried to do the best we can, and we feel, and I feel, having served all over this state as an attorney, that we still are the best run municipal court in this state. And I feel personally that our court is being run in a manner that you and the citizens of Starkville will be proud of. I have prepared, and Mr. Rook has prepared, as thorough as he is, he has prepared a packet for you. I know you have important agenda items this evening, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But as you can see, in the statistics in the packet we have prepared for you. We're a growing city, as you know that. And with that come increases in our case count. So as you can see, in 2009, we're up about 7% over last year. And everything else is up. So, but I feel that we are meeting the needs of the citizens. And as I say, we strive to serve you and the citizens in a way that you will be proud. And I'm here to answer, and Mr. Rookie's here. We have whatever you need, we have for you, I think. We're prepared to answer any questions that you might have about municipal court.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board?
Let me just briefly say, Mr. Faber, we certainly appreciate your service as our municipal judge, and we likewise appreciated your service as our municipal attorney. I want to thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins, for saying that. I appreciate that. It's, as I said before, I say it to you every time that it's an honor to sit in this position.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate the opportunity, as does the rest of municipal court, who they're not here, I'm speaking for them. We all appreciate the opportunity to serve.
And we appreciate what you do every day and also appreciate the thoroughness of your report. Everybody can't see, but you are very thorough in documenting everything that they do and put it out in a format that's easily digestible. Further questions or comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you. We'll excuse ourselves. We don't get on with the business.
All right, our final scheduled public presentation is from Marion McCarter, requesting the city's participation in the sponsorship of the Junior Miss Pageant. Ms. McCarter here.
Good evening. My name is Mary McCarter, and I'm a parent for Megan McCarter, and she'll be upcoming in this Starkville Junior Miss Pageant, which is an opportunity for young girls to achieve self-confidence and self-esteem, and also earn money for college. And this pageant has been going on for years, and it's a chance she's asking for your support and on a patron page for representing her for Starkville. And it will be at MSU campus at the Lee Hall Auditorium, February 28th.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. McCarter? Alderman Sistrunk.
A quick question, how much is the patrons pay?
Patron pay start at $25, you can do $50 or $100. It can be for her or for the whole entire group.
I think that's traditionally what we've done, is to just endorse the group.
Okay.
Are there any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Alderman Vaughn? Oh. Thank you, Ms. McCarty.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our scheduled public appearances, and that will move us into 3 public hearings that we have scheduled. And we'll keep with what has become standard practice on the public hearing process. 2 of these public hearings, the first 2 we'll hear, are the second public hearing on proposed ordinance changes, and the final one will be the first of 2 public hearings on a proposed ordinance change. We will first hear an introduction from the party with closest knowledge about the proposed change, have an opportunity for discussion from the board, move into a period of public comment, and the public comment period will be a 30-minute period maximum total, alternating with comments to be made by a speaker for and a speaker against at a maximum of 3 minutes apiece, until either no one wishes to speak anymore or the 30-minute time limit, or 15 minutes for each side, has been exhausted. The first public hearing we have scheduled is for the repealing and the replacing of Solid Waste Ordinance 2008-2 and City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 94. Alderman Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. We basically, as we started the recycling program, as you know, we changed the recycling committee to a solid waste and recycling committee. So as a result of that, what we've done in our solid waste ordinance is if we have incorporated the recycling language into the ordinance. We've changed a few definitions in here, and anywhere where we needed to add recycling, we basically added that to the ordinance. We've also taken the limit, we no longer will limit anybody to do business commercially in the city of Starkville, where the ordinance before limited who could pick up commercial refuse in the city to the city only. So we're now taking that, striking that out. And then we're also related to the recycling, we're making it, we're including a code violation for anybody that's caught tampering with the recycling material after it's placed at the curb for pickup. We've just had a few issues in the very beginning stages mostly, where people were cutting open the recycling bags and taking out the material they wanted so they could go get paid for that recycling. So we've now made it a code violation to, once it's set at the curb, it becomes the city of Starkville property. And they can't, that's a code violation. Is there anything else, Ms. Boyd, that
Yes, I'd like to, Mr. Turner? Mr. Turner? At the last board meeting, you were concerned about the sidewalks with, cans and all types of, different items on the sidewalk. We did, put something in the ordinance concerning that. Let me read that to you, okay? It's section 8, item number M.
Okay.
For any person or business to block any portion of a sidewalk with solid waste bags, or containers, landscape clippings, recycling containers, or any manner of substance that impedes the free access to the sidewalk. Is that okay with you?
Thank you.
All right. Also, Alderman Carver, we addressed your issue. It's in section 8, item number C. And it states, for any person or contractor other than the city to place or cause to replace any solid waste, including rubbish, trash, landscape cuttings, and recycling and other materials furnished by the city or its contractor upon another property of another. That will take care of your question as far as someone placing on a side where there's no property. It's not their property.
Okay.
It's a violation of the law.
Correct.
Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board? Any questions or comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance change may approach the podium and, after introducing yourself, be recognized for a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak for?
Good evening, my name is Alvin Ward 7. Thank you, Ms. Ward, for that. And if you could, we would like for you to put in PPP so that they will understand that if they're caught, they will be taken care of. Because some people, they feel that they were out of know.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Now, is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance change? Is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance change? Seeing no one, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance change? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one, this will conclude the public comment.
I just like,
You may.
not really for or against, Stan Sheridan, manager and owner of Starkville Recycling. This ordinance, as you know, is a law. And I'd like to ask that y'all take real good consideration in making it, because something needs to be enforced. These laws are what are going to be judged in our cities against other cities. It's just like our recycling that we have going on with the city now. We're recycling all this residential material for y'all for free. We have, like Columbus's Board of Aldermen came over before they got their stuff going on. How can we do it for free? My answer to them was, we have a Board of Aldermen in a city that supports us. We have an ordinance that supports us, and in that ordinance that I was pertaining to, said that we would be the only contractor, since we are contracted with the city, we'd be the only contractor to be able to pick up recyclables in the city. this ordinance that you are changing is gonna end there. It's gonna bring in other contracts. So therefore, this free service that we've been providing has been funded through our commercial people that we have. And now you're inviting, of course, I know you say you have to because of the Attorney General's opinion, but this is inviting other people to come in to take out the monies that are providing the free service to you. And I'd just like to make sure that you understand this, and whatever you need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Sheridan.
Mayor.
Hold on, let's get through the public comment portion. Is there anyone wishing to speak for the proposed ordinance change? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against? Seeing no one, this will conclude our public comment portion of the public hearing, and we'll move back into board discussion on the proposed ordinance change. Alderman Parker.
I just wanted to let the board know a couple of things based on Mr. Sheridan's comments, and we do truly appreciate our curbside recycling program. And this, we do have a contract with Mr. Sheridan and Starkville Recycling to pick up our residential recycling material. So he is the only one that will be authorized and contracted to do that. We're not infringing on that at all. It was actually an AG's opinion that kind of prompted some of this, in that we cannot limit who does business in the city of Starkville. So it's more or less of an Attorney General's opinion from the state of Mississippi that's kind of pushing this change. So it's nothing we're wanting to do that would hurt or help anybody's business. It's just kind of something that we have to do to make sure we're in compliance with the Attorney General's opinion. I just wanted to let the board know of the reasoning behind that.
Further discussion from the members of the board. Alderman Corey.
This question is for the city attorney. Do you feel like this helps to resolve any additional conflicts that we might have had with state law or anything?
It does. The new language in this ordinance clears up that issue that was litigated with that Attorney General opinion and makes us in compliance with that opinion.
Further discussion by the members of the board. Is there any further discussion by the members of the board? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to our second public hearing on repealing and replacing the City of Starkville Floodplain Ordinance 2003-03 and City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62. Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Alderman, the proposed ordinance before you this evening is a complete overhaul of the city's 2003 floodplain ordinance number 2003-3 and Chapter 62 of the city's Code of Ordinances. FEMA and MEMA require adoption with an effective date of the ordinance and all associated materials, especially the new aerial-based floodplain maps, by February 17th, or else the city will run the risk of being dropped from the National Flood Insurance Program, commonly referred to as NFIP. A model floodplain ordinance was provided by FEMA and MEMA to the city to be tailored specifically to the area by city staff members. These revisions include the deletion of sections regarding coastal communities and the inclusion of what is referred to as higher standards, which exceed the minimum requirements of FEMA and MEMA and the NFIP. Some of these higher standards have been detailed in the accompanying memo included with your packet, the most important of which is a requirement to build 2 feet above the 100-year base flood elevation in order to take advantage of insurance cost savings, as shown on the chart included in your packet, which details the insurance cost over the average life of a typical 30-year home mortgage. A link to the proposed aerial floodplain maps has been provided on the city's website, and we'll have paper maps laminated and available for use by the public in the building department. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Questions for Mr. Griffith? Questions or comments? Alderman Corey.
Does that February 17th deadline refer to adoption date or enactment date? Because it's a 30-day period.
It's an effective date, and in the materials in your packet, I included the reason per state statute, the reason for the immediate effectiveness of adoption of this ordinance.
Okay.
Questions or comments for Mr. Griffith? Are there any further questions or comments for Mr. Griffith? Alderman Sistrunk.
I will just say that if any of you are curious, the maps online are very easy to use and quite clear. So if you have any questions about your property, they're excellent maps.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of the public hearing. proceeding with the same process as laid out before. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance?
My name is Alvin Ward, people that live in low plains areas, dry rain and dead water. That we have trouble with mosquitoes, and when the weather changes, and you get warm, and we have lagoons and stuff that pick up the very strong weather. We need to try to make a difference for all of us, because we trying to live with each other. That, if you're living on here, you don't worry about being flooded. But the people in the low-lying area, they have problems.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one, will move back into board discussion. Is there any board discussion on the proposed ordinance, James? Any board discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we will move to our third and final public hearing. This is the first public hearing on amending the Animal Control Ordinance 2008-7 and the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Animals, Article 2, regulating the control of animals, Division 1, generally, Section 18-26, definition, and Section 18-27C, restrictions on owning, harboring, or keeping any animal. Alderman Dumas.
Thank you. I think we have a good our animal control ordinance. We have good staff that are here with us that do good jobs. I think there are a couple of things, though, on looking at the definitions of how some of these things are worded. There are 3 amendments. If you look at page 3 of the proposed change, you see the double underlined. Section 11 is held outside. Let me go back. Abused animals mean any animal which is any of the following, whether such abuse is attributable to intentional cruelty or neglect. And there's some additional definitions here where we've added that the previous ordinance had the actual or effective outside temperature is below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. We have added to that and the animal is not provided any access to any climate-controlled area, warming equipment, or devices. So it gives some further latitude there on those definitions. And then we have added a new section, which is number 12, which discusses the idea that animals cannot be tethered permanently to a unrestricted or a permanent structure for 3 hours within a 24-hour period. And there are several instances where this is becoming, I'd say, a nuisance in different parts of the city. I know there are some in Ward 5. There are others within the downtown district that I've seen, and just walking around and other type things. I know when I walk with my children and, you know, you come up on a dog that's tethered, there's some issues there. So those are the 3 items that have been added to the existing ordinance.
Questions or comments for Alderman Dumas? Or any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance may be recognized for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor and members of the Board of Aldermen, my name is Patrick Mordine, 205 Louisville Street. I have 2 issues that I'd like to bring up today with regard to this ordinance. One is that back when the temperature dropped below 18 degrees a few weeks ago, I was walking my dog and there were 2 dogs tethered. It was about 8 o'clock at night. 2 dogs chained to a tree in a backyard. And these dogs are permanently chained in that backyard. Their entire life is spent on a chain. That's a real problem. No dog should have to spend their entire life on a chain. The second issue was the temperature. Under the ordinance that we have right now, the owner need only provide a shelter for that dog. This could be a wooden structure. It could possibly be this desk over here. And that shelter is supposed to keep that dog warm. I invite anybody who does not believe in that to spend a night in one of these structures. I will build it for you. Spend a night in one of these wooden structures and tell me if you're warm. There is no reason why dogs in Starkville should have to spend their entire life on a chain, and there's no reason why they should have to spend the entire night outside when the temperature is 18 degrees outside. We live in a community that has a very prominent vet school. We should be leading the state in these kind of issues. Any animal behaviorist, any veterinarian will tell you that any dog that's tethered for a long period of time is aggressive. Most cities do not look into this kind of ordinance until somebody gets mauled. Whether it's a child or an adult or another animal, most cities don't look into this until somebody is seriously injured. This is not a conservative issue, it's not a progressive issue, it's not a liberal issue. This is an issue of humanity. How does this reflect on our community? When people come here trying to decide whether they're going to cite their business here in Starkville, this is something that reflects poorly on our community. Please change the ordinance to put in an anti-tethering section, and please require that dogs be taken inside when the temperature drops. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nordine. Is there anyone wishing to speak against?
I'm not going to speak again, but I'm speaking for that we have a dangerous dog ordinance, and we need to actually step it up because it's getting hot now. There's a lot of people running with the dog without leash. I have to stop because if he or she don't have control of the dog, you could attack. Man, all I have is cage. But the Rottweilers and the Labradors and the Pit, if you're gonna run with them, they need to be on a leash where that's that. If you see me or someone walking, we will have protection.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance change? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance change? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against? Seeing no one, we will move back into board discussion on the proposed ordinance change. Is there any discussion from the board? Alderman Carpenter.
I was out, but Alderman Dumas, I guess in response to the citizen questions, I mean, this basically what this says on page 3 is that this new writing says that the animal will not be provided any, if less than 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the animal will be required to be brought inside a climate-controlled area, and that the animal is not, about the tethering, it's not restricted for more than 3 hours in a 24-hour period. So other than the structural issue, the rest of this has been, or will be provided for in this ordinance, correct?
Right, right, and and if you read that, it's, you have to have a climate-controlled area, so it does.
That's the structural.
It does go within the structure of it being a climate-controlled structure and not one that's just a, as Mr. Nordine talked about, a desk or something else, so it takes care of that. Just the same on the heat one, which is B, when heat exceeds a certain degree, it does the same.
Alderman Parker.
And clear up on the definition on tether. Does that include like, one of the zip? Is it a zip line or whatever where they can go left to right? Is that including tethering?
Right, and I think that's up for. That's a good question, because with chain tethered, or has its movements unreasonably restricted. I think that's up for discussion. And I don't know how. That's a good question.
Okay, well, I mean,
And that's something we'll have to look at, of what the definition is, of how that needs to be addressed within this, for sure.
If you leave it as is, or as is always the case, any ambiguity in the language leaves a matter of interpretation for the animal
And
control officer.
subjectivity to the officer, right? Right.
Further discussion? Any further discussion by the members of the board? Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, that will conclude our public hearings. And the next matter before us is the interview of the candidates for the appointment to the Starkville School Board. And what I would like to do on this, this is going to be, because of the number of candidates, a fairly lengthy process. I would like to lay out the process and make sure there's no objections or modifications to that process for the board. Get that squared away and take a brief recess so everybody can stretch their legs one last time, because I think this will take at least an hour. And let me just start by saying this promises to be a very difficult decision by the board. But in this case, that's a good thing, because having read through the letters submitted by both the applicants themselves and on their behalf, it's a difficult decision because this is a highly qualified pool of applicants. Whoever is ultimately appointed to fill the slot that is open on the Starkville School Board, I have no doubt will serve this community very, very well. Now, the process for moving through this, unless there's an objection or modification, is going to be that we will proceed in alphabetical order with each of the 9 candidates. And each candidate will have the opportunity to make an opening statement for a maximum of 5 minutes. At the conclusion of the opening statement, the board members will be invited to ask questions of each prospective candidate. At the conclusion of that interview process, I will ask for the submission in writing of one name by each member of the board. Any individual who receives at least one nomination on those paper slips, the city clerk will collect them, and I will read the tally of nominations. Any person that has received at least one nomination will be invited back for a second interview on Thursday at 5:30 in the activities room of the Sportsplex. The conclusion of that process will be the appointment of a school board member by the Board of Aldermen. Now, are there any objections or proposed modifications to that process by the members of the board?
Mr. Mayor, just one question. I concur with the process. Mr. Mayor, I want to ask a question to the city attorney. I know the answer to the question, but I want him to address it. I think it's important to get an answer to it. Mr. Attorney, is there any applicant that does not meet the legal and ethical requirements for this position?
Alderman Perkins, there is. Mr. Ross Williams submitted an application, and the mayor and Ms. Spruill asked me to take a look at the law in relation to that application, because he's employed by the Mississippi Department of Education as a school attendance officer in the Starkville School District. And the Mississippi Ethics Commission has an advisory opinion that is absolutely on point with the fact scenario. It's a 1999 opinion, and in that opinion, the question was posed, may an individual employed by the Mississippi Department of Education as a school attendance officer serve as a school board member of the district where he works? And the Ethics Commission said that he could not, because it would be a violation of public policy, specifically violating Code Section 25-4-101. The opinion sums up by saying Therefore, a school attendance officer, in order to comply fully with the public policy mandate set forth in Code Section 25-4-101, is precluded from serving as a member of the School Board of Trustees of the school district he serves as the school attendance officer. The mayor and Mrs. Spruill asked me to give Mr. Williams a call, and I called him and advised him of this opinion.
And of course, I'm not trying to get anyone disqualified, but do you have any recommendations how we should proceed in light of your legal opinion?
I would be remiss to say do anything other than follow this advisory opinion by the Mississippi Ethics Commission.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any, Alderman Parker?
Mayor, I had a question about the, we all know, I mean, everything we do is open meeting, and even with the interviewing of these candidates, we've all gone through this. It is an open meeting, and everybody is, we would never ask anybody to leave. I guess my point that I want to make is we have 8 or 9 applicants, and 9 applicants, and I think it gives to call them up in alphabetical order, you're basically giving the first 2, you're giving the number 7, 8, and 9 kind of an advantage over the first couple of people that you call up, because they have a chance to sit in the room and listen to responses, and they know our questions beforehand. And while we would never ask anybody to leave the room during the interviews, I would just ask maybe the applicants as a courtesy, maybe for all the applicants, if it so please the board, to leave the room and we call them back in one at a time to do that interview process. Now, we're not asking anybody to leave the room, period, but as a courtesy, I would personally like for it to go that way.
Mr. Mayor, let me just add very briefly, to the gentleman from 3, we have done that in the past, but it's with each board's discretion. Okay. So if they would do that as a courtesy, then certainly we could do it, and I agree with you, and that's how it should be done, and maybe if the mayor elects to do that, then he could see if they would do this as a courtesy, but that's a good procedure to follow.
Okay.
And to clarify for each of the candidates, this is an open public meeting. There is nothing anybody at this table can do to compel anybody not to be present while somebody else interviews. But since this is indeed a cumbersome way to conduct interviews, not the typical way you would interview prospective applicants, I guess I'll note the sentiment of at least a couple of board members, and if nobody else says anything, we'll assume it's the sentiment of the entire board, that it would be much appreciated as a courtesy if you would allow your fellow applicants to be the only applicant in the room while each interview is conducted, so as not to give anybody any sort of competitive advantage. But that is completely 100% up to you.
That was my point. Thank you.
Further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further discussion? All right, seeing none and that there's been no objection, I'm taking it that y'all are comfortable with that process, and that's the way we'll proceed. Is there any objection to taking a brief recess? About 5 minutes. Any objection to taking a 5-minute recess? Any objection? Objection, seeing none, we stand in recess.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
Meeting will now come back to order. I'm going to read through the alphabetical order list, and if there's no objection from the board, we're going to have one change to the alphabetical order list, and I'll tell you why when I get done. The list in alphabetical order is John Campbell, Ann Carr, George Chandler, Walter Connolly, James Cubby Harris, Eric Heizelt, Mike Rumatig, Susan Tomlinson, and Ross Williams. And the change that I'm going to make without objection is to move Ross Williams to the front. He wishes to make a statement, and I believe he's going to withdraw his name from the pool. So rather than having him wait all the way through to the end of the applicant list to do that without objection, I think it makes sense to do that now. Okay. Mr. Williams?
First, I'd like to say thank you to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for giving me this opportunity to at least throw my hat in the ring for public service to the Starkville community. And Mr. Latimer kind of threw my thunder away. I was going to make this that as part of my presentation. The fact that there had been some questions, ethical questions concerning my interest serving on the school board. Initially, I had consulted with the Mississippi Department of Education concerning the position and had gotten the go-ahead from them to pursue with the understanding that any situations regarding the agency, I would have to recuse myself. However, the Ethics Commission opinion deals a little bit further than just recusing myself from situations involving the agency, and that just my presence on the board would cause a problem for the entire board. That being said, I certainly would like to withdraw my name from consideration at this time, and when I get out of the situation that I'm in, meaning retire from the position, I would certainly offer my services again to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will proceed with the candidates in alphabetical order. First candidate is John Campbell. And Mr. Campbell, do you wish to make an opening statement?
First of all, I would like to say that I'm honored to be here this evening for something as special as appointment for the Starkville City School District. And the reason why I say that is because I've lived here for 30 years, and during my time here, that I've always found myself volunteer in the school district, whether it's the city school or the county school. And I have implemented some programs over the years that some of them worked and some of them didn't work. But the one that did work, I would like to say that I started, I'm the founder of Young Men on the Move. And in the county school, I would actually go out and spend, a whole day there talking to the kids. And I implement the neckties. Prior to that, they was having fights and getting kicked out of school. And upon talking to the parents, the teachers, superintendent, they agreed to this. And as soon as they started wearing the neckties, and I told them that businessmen don't fight with their hand, they fight, y'all know how you do it. But however, it really made a difference. And of course, I have a son who graduated from Starkville High and went on to Southern and to graduate and sports administration, and he's now working on his master there, hoping to get into law school. I'm a minister, I'm a businessman, I'm an inventor, I'm a writer, and I worked on different boards. In fact, I'm a board member of Octavia County Economic Development Authority. I'm appointed by the Governor Barber to the Mississippi Barber Board Examiner, where I served 4 years there, and he just appointed me back for another 4 years. And I've served as vice president and president during those first 4 years. I've observed some of the issues that we have faced here in the city school of Starkville, and I'm not afraid to say what I think is right, because the kids, at the end of the day, if it wasn't for the kids, that we wouldn't have jobs. So they are very important to me. Starkville as a whole is very important to me. The school district is very important to me, because the school district played more than just a role for our kids to be educated. It makes way for jobs, companies to come here, because when a company move into an area, want to move their company into a town or city, the first thing they want to know about the school district. And the school district is so important. And I know that we bigger as an adult, and the children see us doing these things. But the thing is that we should always put the student first, our children first, because, you know, we have gotten our education, and now we should make sure that they get theirs. And I want to think that Starkville City School District is one of the finest school districts in this country, and I'm not politicking. I have gone inside the schools, and I have worked with the teachers and so forth and so on, and I have given up my time, my money, and to the school district, you know. And when I see a problem, I try to become a solver of that problem, and whatever it takes to get it done and make it right, that's what I do. And I'm looking forward to whoever that y'all make a decision with, that it will be a decision with the right one, because from what I can see, that all 9, I'm sorry.
1 minute.
Okay, all 9 of the candidates, I mean, I will vote for all of them, because I know the majority of them, you know. And it's good to have people that are willing to give up their time like this, you know, and that they all are qualified, you know. So I'm just happy to be a part of this great institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. We'll now move to questions from the board. Mr. Carver.
Mr. Campbell, first of all, just thank you for doing this. It means a lot to step out and put your name in the hat. And
Thanks, sir.
I guess my first question is going to be, if you could find what's your biggest fault with the Starkville School District, and what can you do to improve it, or, you know, your philosophies on what would be your #1 goal, your #1 attack mode coming out?
One of the biggest fault that I see is that we talk after hours, and what I mean about that, you know, we get on the phone and talk and about situation, and then when it's time to really come to a meeting and share your expression, you don't show up. And what I would like to see to fix that is that if you're concerned, come out and let's do it according to the rules, regulation, and the law. And if you're not going to do it that way, just simply shut up. But if we could just, you know, make it more visible for the parents to understand what's going on in the school district, you know, and I know that it costs a lot, but I mean, we're dealing with our children, and we shouldn't always talk about the value of money all the time when it comes to education. Being a businessman, I know that's important. But I think we should involve the parents more so in the process of the business aspect of the school district. And if you select me, I promise you that I will work with the board as a team. And that's another thing, teamwork. You know, you can't play a basketball game and you have one man that can score 50 points and the rest of them can't. And people actually scoring 65 points, you're going to always lose. So we need to work collectively together, you know, from the superintendent, the teachers, the parents, and the student. And, you know, and don't leave anybody out.
Further questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Perkins.
I have some questions. Mr. Campbell, the Mississippi, I have a few questions, okay? The Mississippi statewide accountability system labels schools as star schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing. What is the principal, superintendent, and board's responsibilities when schools do not perform well?
Well, actually, it's easy to look at the schools that's not doing well, you know, and say, okay, you're not doing well, but, you know, if your eye began to go bad, one of them, you just don't want to just take it out and throw it away, you know. But the thing is, we should look for ways to improve on those schools that's not doing so well. And first of all, if we will spend time communicating, you know, to get to the problem, and once we can find out what a problem is, we shouldn't waste much time without addressing the problem and coming to a conclusion to fix the problem, you know. Because yes, there have always been students that exceed a 4-point level, average, and there's some that that's gonna do, you know, lower than that. And I don't think that you should punish one for the other, but at the same time, we should find ways not to leave anybody out because that's the law, you know. So, and I think it's very important that we find ways to address those school issues that are performing on a low scale, so we can get them up to excellent, like the rest of the school. Because I'm a product of that, you know. I'm born in Inverness, Mississippi, in the cotton field, you know, so I know what it's like to be put in a situation where learning is sort of difficult, you know. But we have to teach our children that they can excel and succeed, you know, beyond difficult. You know, we have to let them know what the word perseverance means. It means that we're going to go beyond difficult in order to succeed. And I know that our children in this district can and do that.
Mr. Kim, I got 4 more questions. I'm going to run through them real quickly. Does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should there be a place on the board's meeting agenda for public comments?
Yes, as we know that it takes a long time sometimes to get through these meetings like tonight, you know, but I don't think we should excuse a situation because of the time, you know. If it takes all night to come up with something that's going to benefit our children, I'm willing to stay up all night. I hope everybody else feels the same way, you know. I don't think we should excuse anybody because just like the meeting we had the other night, you know, I mean, it was very important that the public come out and address these things because an ounce of prevention worth more than a pound of cure.
Question number 3, I want you to tell me, are you for or against uniform for the school district? And please explain your answer just briefly.
Okay, and I don't mind being put on the spot like that, you know, because it's you know, I can't sit here and filibuster like, well, I don't know.
Right.
Well, first of all, right now, I'm against the uniform for this simple reason, is because there haven't been enough information afforded to me to be for it right now. And not saying being for it is not a good thing, but just simply it's not enough information to being for it to prove that it is, because you know, you had a committee that found that 50-some-odd%, 51 or more percent was for what they came up with then, and the night of the meeting, you know, seemed like 90-some-odd% was against it. So that's a great difference there, you know. So right now, you know, to answer your question, I'm against it until I learn more about it.
Let me let this be my final question. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not there is any safety issues regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measure do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
Well, the most thing that I think that would factor in as a safety issue, you know, and the law protect criminals in some ways, or crooks or whatever, not calling our children that, but you never know what's in their pocket when they get to school. You know, you can't search everybody because it's a large school district, you know. But at the same time, if we would start teaching our children how to conduct themselves according to the rules and regulations, you know, you know, it may have to do it, you know. That's why it's good to get the public involved on it, because you know, there's other ways you can do this outside of the school district, but we as a school district is responsible for our student safety and our children's safety, you know. They talked about, you know, putting fences all the way around the school, and then if you put up fences, then some gonna say, well, it look like a prison. I won't care what it look like as long as the children are safe. If that would keep our children safe, then I'll put fences up or whatever it takes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further questions from the members of the board? Alderman Davis.
As an academic, I appreciate the academic side of what the school system does. I've got a teacher, or a wife who teaches, appreciate that. But I also understand the opportunity or the impact of a school district on a community with the extracurricular type of activities. What do you see as the school board's role in whether it be athletics, the arts, any number of extracurricular things that are traditional outside of the classroom activities that help enhance quality of life across not only within the school district, but or within the school itself, but to the community at large?
Well, being an entrepreneur and inventor and businessman, I know that if we involve the business sector of this school district, you know, and get people involved with not only their money but themselves too, that we can become a part of coming up with programs that will enhance the educational segment that the school provide for our kids. Say, for instance, like the park and recreation, you know, I mean, I coach SAY basketball and football for a number of years, you know, when my son was in the 3rd grade all the way up to the 6th grade. And it made a difference. And some of those kids that was on that team, you know, some is out of Mississippi State, different schools now, some of them graduated, you know, because I personally took a personal step out to sort of share with them even when they're wrong. See, I don't have a problem with telling a kid when they're wrong, but at the same time, you know, if I tear you down, I'm gonna build you up before you leave, you know. I think that if we as the school board would get involved with the community, you know, because, you know, like I stated earlier in my early comment, that companies will come to this town if the school district is proper, you know, and we all know this, you know, because the reason why some of them don't come because we divided on some key issues, you know, and companies don't want to be into no controversy when they don't have to, then when they can go somewhere else, and that's taking money out of this city and this county.
Further questions?
Again, thank you very much for just getting the process started and
Yes,
putting
sir.
your name in the hat, because sitting in that chair is one of the most difficult things that anybody comes up here to do, and we appreciate that.
Thanks, sir.
My question is more about money and budgets. You know, as we all know, that the state will be cutting probably school budgets the next fiscal year, so we're looking at reduced funding. Yet, as far as from a tax revenue standpoint, the school system is the biggest tax I mean, a resident pays more in school taxes than he does any other service, city or county. So, you know, accountability for that budget is a big concern of mine, and give me some experience on dealing with budgets, dealing with, you know, accountability of the money in that budget and things like that.
Well, actually, being a member of Octavia Howard County Economic Development Authority, you know, I've been on that board for over 15 years, and I have served as the budget committee panel when we get ready to do our budget on each year, and I've gained tremendous experience from being on that board and being on the Mississippi State Board Board Examiner, where we have our budget that we do every year. And for the last 4 years, I have been chosen from my board members to represent the State Barber Board each year at the Senate House, and I defend our budget each year. And for the last 4 years, we haven't lost anything. What we budget for, we received it. And I'm not, if you can call it politician if you want to, I'm very known throughout the state and national level, Washington, D.C., with people that I know that serve on different committees, and it come down to when the money is short, we need somebody to be able to make a phone call to a friend that sits on these board and says, will you consider Starkville School District for this matter? And I'll be honored to do it, even if you don't select me.
Sure. Well, and one more, in closely relation to that, it seems that for the exceptional student, say at the high school, they seem to have plenty of programs. They have many foreign language, they have many advanced programs that they can take, but it seems like sometimes for that middle and failing student, it seems that's why our dropout rate is so high. So we're kind of got a gap there where we're not taking care of that middle student. And with the budget cuts, I can only imagine that class size has the potential to get bigger. So do you have any thoughts or ideas on what we could do to, even though we're making a class size bigger, try to catch that middle and lower gap of students and make sure they stay in school and make sure
Well,
we're giving them
actually,
attention?
like I said, I spend a lot of time traveling, sharing my endeavor with the school system throughout the state. And I remember being at a school, at a fourth grade school, and I noticed that there were more students there, and then as I come back a couple of years later, then there's a decrease, The dropout is more prevalent now than ever, and we can put it on the economy, we can put it on being a single parent, whatever the case may be. But I feel that as a school district, that we have a responsibility in helping out in some form or fashion to help concur dropout, because when they drop out, you can look for things that start happening that's going to cost taxpayer money, if no more than tearing down a sign or something. But if we would start working with these kids at an early age, and just constantly stay with them, don't just do it for a year or two, but just make it a priority that we're going to implement these programs to work with the kids all the way through high school. And I work with, like my son, when he was in the first grade, I stayed with him, like I said, up until he got in seventh grade. When they get to seventh grade, they don't want the daddy hanging out with them. But I didn't care. I did it anyway. And that group of students, majority of them graduated from Starkville High because I made sure I kept up with them, and a large number of them went on to college and they're doing successful. But to answer your question, I think that we as board members, unless it's against the law, that we could go in the classroom sometimes to show our face and show our concern. You'll be surprised how that would change students to do well academically and do well in their conduct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from the board? Alderman Vaughn.
Good evening, Mr. Campbell.
Good evening, sir.
Again, thank you for taking that challenge, but it's not a challenge to you because you're a man of many hats. But the first question you already answered it. I was going to ask you were you a native of the Starkville area, but you already answered that one. Second question, as a school board member, who do you serve?
As a school board member, who do we serve in terms of the people or?
Right.
Well, actually, as a school board member, we serve the school district, and it consists of the superintendent, the principals, the teachers, the custodians, the students, and you can put them in any category, but the fact is, we serve the entire school district, from my understanding.
Second question, if appointed, what plans do you have for improving education in this district?
Well, if I'm elected to this position, first of all, I won't come out here and try to show y'all that I don't want to tick nobody off, but if I do, I don't care, because again, the kids are number one to me. But the thing is that if we would start working together, collectively, more together, and let our parents see this happening, let our citizens see this happening, I think it would actually make a difference that these extra meetings and these other things that we have to take care of can be resolved if we would stand up and be who we have been elected to do and follow all guidelines and principles, and I think that one thing I can bring to this board, number one, is camaraderie, that let's get together first. Because if we continue to be separate on issues in which everybody had their opinion and you had a right to vote the way you vote, but I believe if we work together, we can solve a lot of these problems that we're having now, almost instant.
What standard and procedure should be followed in implementing a school dress code or school code conduct?
And that's a very good, a hard one to answer, but I'm answering you. Because number one, parents say, well, if I buy my child a $100 outfit, they should be able to wear it. But what the rules say, I'm a man of rule and regulation. And I believe if we could go to the parents and share with them what the rules and regulation is, I don't think we'll get a whole lot of resistance from them, because I can remember my daughter was in the 10th grade. I woke up one morning, she was headed out, and I guess she didn't think I saw her, and her pants were sagging. And I said, well, either you pull them up, put a belt on them, or I'm gonna duct tape you. I might have went to jail for that, but fine, I don't mind going to jail for something like that. But I was gonna check on her before the day is over, make sure her pants was up. Because first of all, you don't know who's watching you, and then we need to teach our children this, because when it's time for you to get a job, somebody might remember you when you was in high school, when you wore your pants a certain way or you talked a certain way and you was out of order and so forth. We need to teach our children respect and how to respect each other. And I think that if we would, it's a big job, and I don't mind taking on this. I've taken it on before. So I think that in time, it's not gonna happen overnight, but in time, if we as a board will start showing that type of leadership, then I think that everybody else will follow suit. Because if the sergeant, smoking, it's hard to tell the one that he teaching not to smoke. We have to lead by examples. And the best way to do that is for us to start showing up in the classroom as board members. If we don't do them, just say, how you doing? Do you need any help? When they see that type of attitude, it makes a difference. And I've experienced that over the years of my going into the classroom and sharing things with the student.
Last question. What knowledge do you have about the operation of the school system?
Well, I know that the system changed over the years, and when my son was in school, obvious, I stayed up on the rules and regulations because I had the handbook, and I'm sure my son graduated, say 6-7 years ago. I'm sure it didn't change, but if I'm not up on it tonight, if given a chance, the week won't go out without me being up on what I need to be up on, because I don't mind calling up somebody that do know and ask what I need to do, because I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you like I know everything, but also I'm willing to learn myself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions? Any further questions from the members of the board? Any further questions? Any further questions?
If I may say something before, and if this politic, you tell me, I have a young man that's sitting back there now. I read my book, my first book, Daydream on My Concept, and this book we're getting ready now to do a documentary on it, and you have a student in here tonight that's on my front cover, and I told his parents when they allowed him gave him permission for me to put him on my front cover, that when he get old enough to go to college, if he want to go to school in London, that I'll pay his way. And at the time, I didn't have 50 cents in my pocket, but I believe it's going to happen, and I have ways of making it happen now, and I'm honored that I can play that kind of role with students, because I tell you, I can go in a classroom. I don't care what you can say. They bad, they this and that. Give me 10 minutes with them. And they'll be saying, yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. Our children can learn. I know this. I'm a product of it.
Are there any further questions? Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
All right, our next candidate is Ann Carr. And we'll give Ms. Carr a second to get in the room.
Hello.
Ms. Carr, do you wish to make an opening statement?
I would. Let me see.
You can sit or stand.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak this evening concerning the school board. Most of you don't know me. My name is Ann Carr, and I've been in Starkville for over 20 years. Have a daughter here. She was born here in Starkville, Mississippi, and I've made this my home. I started school when my child started school again. I've made sure that I got to know our principals in our schools, our teachers in our school, helping out whenever I possibly can, getting my students involved in the school system in order to be able to show them where we want our young people to go after they leave high school and to motivate them to go to high school and graduate. I'm very passionate about education. My mother was a teacher, and actually I started out wanting to be a teacher. Changed my goal once I got to college and wanted to be an academic counselor. Being an academic counselor also allowed me the opportunity to be able to help young people once they got to college to make sure they finished their race. I wanted to be a strong advocate for any student that came, even if they weren't as prepared as they should have been. And I love my job. I love helping students. I love going into our school systems right now. And it's not just Starkville schools, but any school system that called. I'm willing to go into those schools and talk to young people about how they need to continue their education and learn things, not just at school, but when they're at home with their parents as well. So I appreciate this opportunity. The school board, I'm very passionate about that. I see myself being there. I see myself being able to speak my mind. The job that I work right now, I am the only female in upper. Don't have a problem standing up to anyone there. There are all types of issues that come up as far as the coaches that I have to deal with, the student athletes that I have to deal with, the parents that I have to deal with. And I feel that I'm very capable of handling those situations in a very confidential manner and being open-minded and being very passionate about making sure that the student themselves and their welfare is taken care of. Thank you.
Questions from the members of the board? Alderman Carter.
Just thank you for putting your name in the hat and everybody. And I guess tonight you brought to my attention about the dropout rate here at Starkville School District. You know, what do you think would be the solution, the quickest solution to that problem, and what we can do about it?
Alderman Carver, I don't think there's a quick solution to that problem. I think we do need to study what our problem is. I know one of the things that I know Mississippi State is into the schools, and especially starting at the 8th grade, trying to make sure that our students understand what it is not to finish school. And I think we all have to get involved in making sure that they understand what happens when you don't have a college degree, a high school degree, I'm sorry, where that leads us. Find out why it is that our kids aren't being motivated. And I don't know if it's necessarily in the schools or in our families, but it will not be a quick fix to what is going on. But we do need to pay close attention to the fact that we do have a high dropout rate in Starkville, which is definitely unacceptable.
Yes, ma'am.
Further questions? Alderman Burke.
Ms. Carr, good evening.
Good evening.
I want to ask you the same 4 questions that I'm going to ask all the applicants, okay? My first question is, Mississippi statewide accountability system labels schools as star schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing. What is the principal's, superintendent's, and board's responsibility when schools do not perform well?
Their responsibility is to figure out what needs to happen in order to get our schools to those levels. We want to be at the highest possible level, which is at the top, not surfacing down at the bottom, not sugarcoating, not hiding. And I think maybe that's what our problem is. I think we need to bring out exactly what our problem is, but we have to study that. We have to figure out what the problem is, where it's beginning, whether it's the 6th grade, as most people think, is once we get to Armstrong, once we leave the hill and get to Armstrong, that's where we have a lot of our problems. Well, why is that? The board needs to make sure that we're not finding reasons to make sure kids aren't getting the education that they need. I think it's also critical that we're not afraid to answer the tough questions or see the tough questions, the things that are going on. I sometimes think we want to just overlook that we're having a problem in our schools with our graduation rate, why kids don't want to go to school, why teachers sometimes may not feel good about teaching our kids, why they're afraid to teach our kids. We have a lot of issues, I think, that need to be addressed, and that's where it's going to start in order for us to get our school back to a higher level.
Question number 2, does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should there be a place on the board's meeting agenda for public comments? Please elaborate.
Yes. As a parent, if I feel like there's a problem, I think I should be able to go and ask the question. I think I'm asking the boards to make a decision. However, I would like for them to hear what I have to say. I'm putting my child's future, part of it, in their hands. And so therefore, I feel like I should be able to voice my concerns, and you just listen to them. Now, as I tell everybody, it's going to be give and take. There are going to be things I like, and there are going to be things I don't like. There are going to be things that, what is going to be best for the entire school, and that's what you ultimately have to do. But I think parents should be able to voice their concerns, and I think there should be a place in their meetings where they ought to be able to do so.
Question number 3, and the question is, are you for or against uniform for the school district? Answer for, against, and then explain your position.
I am for uniforms. I'll tell you why. I have a 13-year-old daughter who changes her clothes 5 times in the morning. Up until this past year, I did not want uniforms. 1, because my daughter stands 5'9". She's 13. Where am I going to find clothes to fit her that are specialized? So for a long time, no, I did not want uniforms. After this year with her, I want whatever is the simplest thing I can get on her so that she can get to school and we can be on time.
My final question, do you have an opinion as to whether or not there is any safety issues regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measures do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
There are some safety issues with our schools. Having been on the Hill last year when the young man ran through the campus and they put the school on lockdown, my child was there. Now, do I get up every morning and think that there's something going to happen to my child? No, I do not, because I can assure you I'd probably be at the school every day. So I don't have that problem, but I do feel that there are some safety issues that need to be addressed, whether it's the doors that have certain doors where they can go out, but for fire hazards, but people can't just come into those particular schools, especially the ones that are closest to wooded areas. I think it needs to be addressed. I think that it is too open. I go to the school all the time. However, there are some places where, although I know where I'm supposed to go, doesn't necessarily mean that's what I do, as well as a lot of parents. But I think we have to look at that issue and make sure that where they're located, that any kid walking around, whether it's going from building to building, because now we will have more kids at our schools. There is going to be some openness of those schools, and they're in neighborhoods. And whether or not people want to hurt our kids, they can walk through the grounds at any time. And so I think that is a problem that deals with safety. But as I said, I don't feel when I drop my child off in the morning that something is going to happen to her.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions?
Okay.
Alderman Dixon.
Like Alderman Perkins, I'm going to ask the same question. As an academic, I understand the academic side of this, and I respect that part of it, but I also understand the impact of the school system on quality of life within the community, whether it's athletics, arts, traditional things, or things outside of the traditional classroom setting. What do you see the school board's role as far as those items are concerned?
I think we have to figure out ways to make sure that our children are well-rounded. One of the things that I do at Mississippi State deals with wellness of our student athletes. I think it's important that you provide students with something other than the normal thing that we would do, whether it's just education or whether it's just athletics. We have students who are very gifted in all areas, and we cannot ignore that. I think Starkville in the past have always had great students who excelled in art, in fashion, in photography, and I don't think you can stop that. I think we have to find ways to try to promote that. Budgetarily, I know it's difficult, but we cannot forget those kids who do excel in that area.
And I have a 4-year-old daughter who changes 10 times a morning, so I understand that.
Further questions? Alderman
I'll
Carter.
try to put it in the same way as I did before. One of my concerns is the budget that the school system has. It's one of the largest budgets in our whole county, and it's the single biggest tax for a citizen for the city of Starkville. In other words, taxes they pay go to the school system more than any other department. Can you share some of your experiences with handling budgets, the accountability of budgets, and it's our job as the school board sets their own millage, and then they tell us what to set it at, and that's what we have to set it at. So, I'm just very concerned about staying within your means, and with the state, we know we're going to get cut by the state. So, anyway, just go ahead.
What I do right now, I work with several sports. And one of the things most people think is because we're in the athletic department, we have money coming from every nook and cranny, which isn't true. So therefore, one of the things that we have to talk to our coaches about constantly is making sure they stay within their budget. And when they don't stay within their budgets, what the consequences are. One of the things that I do with the particular sports that I work with, one of them being basketball, is that everything that they do, it has to come by me first. So we can make sure that it is staying within their budget, that we're not throwing away money frivolously, that it is something that we really need for our student athletes. In anything, you don't want our students to go without. However, there are measures or some things that we can sort of curve and still have a good experience for those students. So having worked with Mississippi State's the 3 sports that I have, which is track, women's basketball, and our volleyball team, trying to make sure that those sports stay within their means, it's always a very challenging thing because they're always thinking of different ways to be able to do things and wanting to do more for their student athletes. So having that background, I know how to be able to look at a budget and decide that, even if you ask for something, if it's not there, it's not there. And explain that. I think sometimes our biggest problem is that we're willing to tell people to do things, but we're not willing to share so that they can fully understand why it is we have to do the things that we do. And I think communication is that big key. And I think you have to be able to sit down and actually talk to people and tell them why things are going the way that they're going. And even if they don't understand, be willing to explain or answer whatever question they have for them to feel better. And I think it all comes back down to communication. And with their budget, they need to be told how we need to be able to spend the money. They're going to ask questions. They're going to want things. Right now, with the PTA, we give mini grants. However, we have money, but we do not want to spend it all on a certain thing. So therefore, we have to make sure that whatever we're giving it to, it is a legitimate reason for doing that.
As budgets get cut, and we know that next, we made the class sizes maybe get bigger, and I think right now that for the exceptional student, they have many programs, many peak and many language, many things that they can excel in. But for the average to lower student, it seems like that's where our gap is with our dropout rate and with some of our test scores. And do you have any ideas of how we can capture those students and make sure they stay in school and make sure that we keep them, we try to progress them?
I wonder if we've ever asked questions of those students what they like to do. Again, it goes back to whether we're deciding what they should do, and we're deciding what needs to happen, as opposed to asking questions. I'm quite certain that those students would be able to tell you what they would like to do. And if it's something that's feasible, can we incorporate it maybe into some programs that we already have as opposed to coming up with new programs? My child does the art class, absolutely loves it. I would hate for it to be taken away. But I think she had an opportunity to be able to show her skills and to say what it is she likes to do. Whether it's sports for kids, the type of sports. I often think I have a child who played for the high school but was in the 7th grade. We don't have volleyball at our schools. Well, but she loves volleyball, but the only way that she could play was she had to try out for the high school team. I personally think a 7th grader shouldn't be on a high school team because you're exposing them to things that maybe it's just not time to expose them to. But because we don't have that at our school, at our middle school, if she wanted to play, that's what she had to do. And I want to help her and expose her to things. And I think that's another part of our job is to expose our students to things that they wouldn't necessarily be exposed to. And we've got to figure that out. But it starts by let's just ask them questions so that they can give us some idea.
Thank you.
Further question? Alderman Vaughn.
Good evening, Ms. Carter. The first question you already answered, are you a native of the Starkville area? You already answered that one for me. The second, as a school board member, who do you serve?
I serve the students.
If appointed, what plans do you have for improving education in the district?
Well, one is to look at what we have already in place and then be able or willing to discuss what we need to do in order to try to change, if it's not working, what we need to do in order to try to make it better for the kids in Starkville. No, I'm not from Starkville, Mississippi. I'm from Mississippi. This is my home. I could have left here, and I did. I came right back. So obviously there is something in this town that draws me here, keeps me here. I'm a single parent, and I have no family here. But whatever it is, this is the town that I have fallen in love with. I want my child to be successful here. I know that she can be because of stories I've heard about Starkville Public School before we came here. So I know we're capable of it, and I know we can get back there, and I know that it takes possibly a strong person just to say, let's look at what we're doing. Maybe we need to change something, maybe we need to tweak something, but we certainly can't ignore what's going on if we want to get our school and our kids back to an area where we are very proud of and for people to come in. One of the things that I have a problem with is whenever we're recruiting coaches to come here, I don't ever want to hear a coach say the reason they didn't choose Mississippi State is because of our school system. That's the last thing I want to ever hear. I don't ever want to hear a company who doesn't want to come to Starkville because the school system isn't what they want it to be for their child. So we've got to have some people on that school board that is willing to get down and get dirty, find an answer, ask a hard question to figure out what we need to do in order to improve our school system. So being from Starkville, I'm from Starkville, okay?
What standards and procedures should be followed in implementing a school dress code or a code of conduct?
Well, on your school, the dress code, if we're planning on changing it, I think it was very important that we found a way to make sure that everybody knows as much as we possibly can about it. And I think you have to do your homework, okay? Whether I'm for or against, and I've told you that I was for it and why I'm for it, doesn't necessarily mean anything. Being on the school board, my opinion of that dress code should be removed. It's what our constituents have to say. Now, if a survey was sent home and sent back, it is the parent's responsibility to fill that survey out and send it back in, or whatever means it is, to make sure that their voices are heard, okay? But once we implement something, we need to follow it. Meaning, if a child comes to school and they don't have the proper a belt on and they have loops, we need to send them home. We need to call their parents, we need to send them home. And I think sometimes we're getting away from that, the idea of maybe we don't want to call the parents because it's just a belt this time. Well, that's what it is this time. Next time it will be, we're constantly pulling up our pants. Or the next time our dress or is too short or whatever. If we're going to have rules, we need to follow those rules as best we possibly can. And then we need to encourage them. Now, I don't mean you belittle anybody. I mean, you simply talk to our students and say, this is what is acceptable and this is what isn't acceptable. And then we have to allow them to grow. And I think sometimes we don't do that, which causes students to do things that aren't beneficial for them.
Last one. What knowledge do you have about the operation of the school system?
I don't have a whole lot. I am willing to learn what it takes to make sure that we are following it. I'm willing to speak up when I see that things aren't the way that they should be followed. I'm willing to make sure that if the hard questions are asked and I don't know the answer, that I go find the answer. I think it's critical that you have open-minded people. I think it's critical that you have people who are willing to work hard. I think it's critical that you have people who are willing to say that they really and truly love kids and they want them to be successful. Our procedure, I'll find the procedure. I'll learn the procedure. You know, I started a job 17 years ago. Didn't know a whole lot about it. But I can tell you everything there is now. And as I tell students who come to Mississippi State as we recruit them, if I don't know the answer, I'll have the answer before you leave. Because I want you to feel that it is important, whatever it is you're asking, that you will get that answer. Whether you like it or not, but you will get that answer.
Further questions? Any further questions? Any further questions? Any further questions? Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Thank you all very much.
All right, we'll give Mr. Chandler a moment to get in the room.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your health care needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
And Mr. Chandler, do you wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay. My name is George Chandler, and I live here in Starkville, Mississippi. Just recently relocated back to Starkville. As the newspaper said, I graduated all 5 of my children through the Starkville School District. And just to make a long story short, I didn't have all the credentials that a lot of these candidates had before my name or after my name. And that may be because most people don't know me. I kept basically to myself. I worked and I raised my children. Graduated them through this system, as I stated. And this system done a lot for my children. Actually, I moved here in '86 from Clay County because this school district was rated in the top 10 in the state of Mississippi. And education was important to me for my children. And as I stated, it's done quite a bit for my children. I had a son to graduate here, went on to play professional football. I had a daughter here to be nominated as a presidential scholar in visual arts. So it's time, I felt, to give something back to the system. Because right now, I don't work anymore. So I got plenty of time to do whatever is needed here. And that's basically my opening statement.
All right. Questions from the board? there any questions from the board? Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Chandler, good evening.
Good evening.
I have 4 questions that I'm going to ask you, same that I'm asking everybody else. My first question is, the Mississippi statewide accountability system labels schools as star schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing. What is the principals, the superintendents, and the board's responsibility when schools do not perform well?
Is to actually work to get that grading up, to educate those children better, to find out where the problems are and eliminate them, in my opinion.
Second question, does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should there be a place on the board's meeting agenda for public comments? Please elaborate.
I believe that the board has a responsibility to the general public, the parents of children in the school district, simply because I think if you get a buy-in from the parents on what the school board has in store for these children, then you get a whole lot better support once the parent knows what is going on with his or her child within that system. And once you get that, then that would work from home, because I believe everything that's going wrong, I won't say everything, but basically a lot of things that's going wrong in this system starts at home.
Number 3, Mr. Chandler, are you for or against uniform for the school district? And in your response, please explain your position.
Well, actually, I'm against uniforms. The first time that I saw children wearing uniforms, I was a half a world away from Mississippi. I was in Perak, Thailand, serving in the United States Army. It looked good, but I didn't see a purpose that it served. It does not, in my opinion, make a school district or a child safer at school. I think policing your campus and making the campus safe is what makes the children safe at school.
And finally, Mr. Chandler, do you have an opinion as to whether or not there's any safety issue regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measures do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
I do believe that there are some safety issues that face our school district, and that's basically with open campuses, where people have open access to the campus. They're able to walk right across the campus undeterred. Because I think that's been a practice here in this area, but times have changed. There are more criminal-minded people in our area now. Crime is on an upsurge here like every other place in the United States. So I think the school campuses should be enclosed, fenced and gated with security people in place, so that it would deter people from entering into the campus. Because, you know, my contention here is if you wear a uniform, I can go into any store where they're sold and buy the same uniform that you buy for your children. And if I got some criminal intent, don that uniform and go right onto the campus and do whatever it is you want to do. I think we should enclose those campuses, restrict access. In doing so, I think that would make it a very safe environment for our children.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Alderman Davis.
I understand and appreciate the academic side of what the school board does, but what do you see as the school board's responsibility from the traditional non-academic side, whether it's academics, arts, other quality of life issues and roles that they play within the community?
What I see, or what I feel, the school board's responsibility is to foster the very best education for every child that's within that school district. Every child. No child left behind. Whatever it takes to educate that child, we should come up with a program that's conducive for doing so.
Further questions? Alderman Parker.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
One of my concerns is about the budget that the school system has. It's one of the largest budgets in the county. It's the single biggest expenditure for a taxpayer in the city, in the school district. And we all know that there are probably going to be budget cuts that are coming. So, which means increased class size. I'd like for you to give me some experiences you've had with managing budgets, with accountability of those budgets, and any ideas you might have that we are going to have reduced funding, so any ideas you might have.
Well, like I said, I didn't come with a lot of accolades attached to my name, but that doesn't say that I haven't had any experience. For the better portion of my working career, I worked as a manager in some fashion or some company, all the way from a frontline supervisor to an assistant plant manager. And in doing so, I had to come up with workable budgets and deal with profit and loss statements.
There seems to be, in our system, we have many programs for the student that excels.
Okay.
It seems to be that average and lower student is kind of what's getting left behind. Do you have any ideas on what we could do to make sure those students, indicated with our dropout rate, what can we do to keep those students in school and help those students?
Well, I managed for more than 30 years, people of all walks of life, all races. It did not matter. And I found that you can't manage a person that you don't know. Likewise, you can't teach a kid if you don't get to know that child. You have to get into the inner workings of knowing that particular child and knowing what makes that child go, what drives that person. Everybody has a niche. I have one, and I think all of you have one. And whatever it takes to find out what makes that child go, what motivates him or her, then we need to find it and work on it.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
Further questions? Alderman Vaughn.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Good evening to you.
Like I'll tell all the rest of them, the first question you already answered. Are you a native Starkville area? You already answered that one for me.
Well, actually, yeah, go ahead.
Second one, as a school board member, who do you serve?
I serve the people of Starkville, Mississippi, the school board, and all of the children, the parents as well.
If appointed, what plans do you have to improving education in this district?
I believe in an old proverb that the Chinese use, that you don't walk into walking. I first have to get appointed to the board to learn what is actually going on within that board. Then I start to working on it, working on things that I see and talking with fellow workers or board members on things that I see, and getting a buy-in from them, and then we work it together. I don't think that any one person should dominate the board.
What standards and procedures should be followed in implementing a school dress code or a code of conduct?
I think the policies that are already in place need to be looked at. If there are any adjustments that need to be made, then the entire board need to come to a consensus on what those adjustments are. Then that's handed down to our superintendent and to our administrators to enforce those policies. Because I think that's where a lot of the ball is dropped, at the enforcement level. If you have a dress code in place, then enforce it. Require those children to meet that standard. Like I said, I graduated 5 children through this system, and they had a minimal amount of problems because I policed at home. I had standards that had to be met with my children. If they left home with a belt on, they came back home with a belt on. And if I heard anything changed in between, I addressed it with them. I didn't send my children to school to be raised by the school teachers. I raised them at home. I sent them there to be educated. That's not the teacher's job to raise anybody's children, to educate them.
Last question. What knowledge do you have about the operation of the school system?
It's minimal at this point. As I stated earlier, you don't walk into walking. I have to get into this board and learn what's going on in the system. I just recently moved back to Starkville about 6 months ago because I worked out of this area for about 3 years. Just got back into Starkville in August of this year. Of last year, rather, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Are there any further questions from the members of the board? Any further questions? Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for having me.
Dr. Connolly, do you wish to make an opening statement?
Yes. First of all, let me thank the mayor and the Board of Aldermen for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak with you. I'm a native of Occidental County, been here all of my life. I am married to the former Gloria Brooks, and we have 3 adult children. We also have 2 precious grandchildren. And one reason that I am interested in this particular position is that one of my grandchildren is already in the Starkville School District, excuse me, and another one will be entering August of this year. So I'm very interested in the quality of education provided in the Starkville School District. The other reason is that having served as a superintendent for 20 years, I think that I could bring a wealth of information to the table to assist the Starkville School District in whatever endeavor. And I want to also stress, and I think this probably will be a concern, is that I'm not at all interested, having been a former superintendent, I'm not at all interested in the day-to-day operation of the school district. I understand very clearly the responsibilities of a school board member. And the third reason is that I've been retired for a little over 2 years now, and I'm just interested in getting back into the swing of things and to offer some service back to the community if that's the community's desire.
Questions from the board? Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Perkins.
Dr. Conner, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, Attorney Perkins.
I have 4 questions. My first question is, the Mississippi statewide accountability system labels schools as star schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing. What is the principals, the superintendents, and board's responsibility when schools do not perform well?
Well, first of all, I think that it is the responsibility of the board, along with the administration, the faculty, staff, the parents, students, the total community. First of all, they need to establish a vision for the school district. Once that vision has been clearly established, then I think that a mission should be also determine exactly where you want to go. Once that mission has been established, I think that you need to establish some goals from that mission. And from those goals, you need to establish objectives that are clearly measurable so that at any time along this process, you can determine whether you are achieving your goals or not. And you know, in establishing the vision, the mission, the goals, and objectives, I think you should look at specific areas. We all know that the personnel aspect of any school district is important. I've always said that the success of any school district or any organization depends on 3 things. The first thing is personnel. The second thing is personnel. And the third thing is personnel. If you don't have people in place, you're not going anywhere. And I don't care what the organization is, whether it's corporate, in the corporate world, athletics, education, or anywhere. So you need to look at your personnel. Once that has been examined and clearly defined, you need to look at the instructional program, because that's the heartbeat of any school district is the instructional program. How well the instructional program is being administered so that students will gain maximum benefit. I think the next thing you need to do is to establish, look at transportation. Transportation is extremely important. That is the means by which we get students to and from school in a safe and efficient manner. I think that the other thing needs to be looked at is the food service. Are we serving nutritional meals to our students? A lot of our students, unfortunately, which is no fault of their own, might not have nutritional meals as they leave home. So it is important that the school district provide those nutritional meals. We should take a look at technology to see if technology is being utilized such that it maximizes the benefits of the district in terms of getting some things done. So all of those things, I think, need to be examined along with the school board, the administration, the faculty, support staff, the students, and the parents, because this is a cooperative effort. And unless you get everyone to come along and get on the same page, it'll be very difficult to achieve the goals of the Starkville School District.
Question number 2, Dr. Conley, does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should there be a place on the board's meeting agenda for public comments? Please elaborate.
Yes. The more input the board and the administration and the school district can get from the community, I think the better define the mission, the vision, and those kinds of things. So I think at each board meeting, a space should be allowed for public comments from parents, business leaders, civic leaders, et cetera. I don't think that the board should shut the community out. I think that a line of communication should remain open at all times because in my experience, it has, I've realized that most of your problems can be traced right back to a lack of communication. So yes, I believe that a space should be provided on the agenda at every board meeting for interaction between the board and the community.
Question number 3, are you for or against uniform for the school district? In your response, please explain your position.
Well, first of all, as far as uniforms are concerned, it's not about whether the school board member is in favor of uniforms or not.
But I guess my question is, if because I want to get a for or against, and we appreciate what you're about to say, I'm sure, but I want to know if you had a motion before you tonight, would you vote for or against the uniform policy? I mean, you can explain. I want to know for or against and explain.
Well, if I had a motion before me tonight, based on the information that I've received or based on the information that has been published, I would vote no. Simply because there is a lot of opposition within the community as it relates to uniforms. I think that it is incumbent upon the board to make sure that whatever policies are implemented, that the proper procedure has been followed in terms of gathering information to get a pulse of the community. And it just seems to me that there's a lot of opposition as far as uniforms are concerned. Plus the fact no one has established any clear data as to whether, the benefits of uniform, whether you're talking about safety, whether you're talking about the improved academic performance of students or any of that. So therefore, I would vote no just based on the information that's available at this time.
Finally, Dr. Conley, do you have an opinion as to whether or not there's any safety issues regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measures do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
As far as the Starkville School District is concerned, I don't see any, based on my observation, and I've been in this community for a number of years, I don't think there is a real safety issue. I think that in terms of fights, I don't think the Starkville School District has experienced any more fights than any other school district in this state. So I don't think that there's a safety issue that to the point that it should be a concern.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions from the board? Alderman Devon.
I understand and respect the academic side of things. What do you see as the school board's role in the extracurricular activities such as athletics, in the non-traditional academic classroom activities that happen within a school setting that offer quality of life, both not only to the student but to the community at large?
I think the school board's responsibility is to provide the financial resources in order for those particular activities to be implemented. I think that it is the responsibility of the administration, faculty, and staff to actually implement those activities, but the school board has the responsibility of providing the financial support for those particular activities.
Further questions?
Dr. Payne, thank you for being here. I've kind of made a point with every candidate to say that, the taxes that we pay for our school system are of all the facets of our government are the highest. And I've asked about their experience with budgets. I undoubtedly know you've had great experience with budgets being with the county school system for 20 years, so I'll kind of move on to my next one. I think where we, to me, in our school system, we have many programs for the student that excels and the upper end students. Where I think for that average to lower end student, those are the ones that seem to be left behind. Do you have any ideas or programs that you that you might have that could help those students, help us keep those students?
First of all, let me say this. Financial resources are extremely important in terms of implementing any programs to address whether it's the upper end students or your middle or your lower end students. I think that after school programs are extremely important in terms of making sure that those students that are in need of help actually get that help. I think that getting parents involved at a level that's going to have a really positive impact on those particular students in order to get them up to par. And of course, it is extremely important that we bring all students along, because based on the environment these days, a school district is responsible for not only the upper end students in terms of their success, but also the lower end students also. So it is incumbent upon the school district to make sure that all of those students' needs are addressed from the bottom to the top.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Yes.
Alderman Vaughn.
Good evening, Dr. Connor.
How you doing?
Number one, you already asked it, so I had to ask everyone the same question. Are you a native Starkville area? Yeah, I know you are. And number two, as a school board member, who do you serve?
As a school board member, you serve, in my opinion, you serve the entire community. Okay, you don't leave anybody out. I think in terms of good leadership as far as the school board is concerned, if you leave out any segment of the community, then you are asking for problems later on. If you get everybody on board initially, then I think that everything is going to go smoothly. And so you serve the whole community. It's not just the superintendent, it's not just the administration, it's not just the faculty, support staff, students, business leaders, civic leaders. It's the total community that you serve.
Next question. If appointed, what plans do you have to improve in education in this district?
Well, first of all, I hesitate to say that that's a difficult question. One of the things I've always been aware is that you need to be aware of an individual who has the answer before they understand the problem. Okay, and a lot of people will give you an answer that that you would like to hear, but the important thing is that if I'm a school board member, I need to understand the problems that exist, or to determine or find out the problems that exist in the Starkville School District. Once you are well aware of the problems that exist, then you can get together with the total community and begin to devise methods by which to address those. But for me to tell you what I'll do here tonight and not knowing the exact problems that the district is experiencing is just simply not, would not be a good answer, I guess you would say.
What standard and procedure should be following in implementing a school dress code or school code conduct?
Well, first of all, the school board, along with the community, needs to establish a dress code if that's be the case. Okay. Once that dress code has been established and adopted by the school board, it is the responsibility of the superintendent, the administration, the faculty, and staff to implement and enforce that particular dress code or any regulations that the school district has.
Lastly, what knowledge do you have about the operation of the school system? A lot of it.
Well, having served as superintendent for 30 years, not 30 years, 20 years, in terms of the school board, I understand thoroughly the responsibility of the school board is basically a policy-making body. The superintendent and the principals and the teachers, they are responsible, and support staff, they are responsible for the day-to-day operation of the school district. You have to, as a superintendent, as a school board member, particularly the superintendent needs to make sure that the day-to-day operations are going smooth in terms of the instructional program, in terms of transportation, in terms of food service, in terms of implementation of technology, in terms of federal programs, in terms of the maintenance and upkeep of the buildings. As the superintendent needs to be make sure that the budget, along with the school board as well as the community, make sure that a budget is put together that's going to reflect the goals and the mission of the school district. Transportation, make sure that students are transported at an efficient and a safe manner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Alderman Carter.
What programs or tactics did y'all use in the county school system to combat dropout rates? And I mean, what specifically did y'all do to combat dropout and target dropout students?
Okay. There were several things that were done when we were trying to combat dropout rates. First of all, there were certain incentive programs. For example, for those students who had, at the end of the semester or at the end of the year, those students who had no, let's say, tardies or absences, you had pizza parties or go to the skating rink or some other type of award being presented on awards day and those kinds of things. So there were all type of incentive programs to encourage students to stay in school, and the more students stay in school, the less likely that they would drop out. Also, we made sure that their experiences were positive. In other words, we wanted students when they woke up in the morning to want to go to school. We didn't want them to dread coming to school, so we did a lot of different things in order to encourage them to participate in extracurricular activities, clubs, athletics, art, music, and those kinds of things. So those type of things that would encourage students to want to come to school and thereby would decrease the likelihood of them dropping out. Plus the fact we had to submit to the State Department of Education a program that would address the dropout problem.
Okay. Further questions? Are there any further questions? Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Conley.
Thank you, Dr. Conley.
Mr. Harris, do you have an opening statement you'd like to make?
Yes, sir. Good evening. I'm James Cubby Harris. I'm a lifelong resident of Starkville. I attended the Starkville Public Schools, and I graduated from Starkville High School in 1976. And while at Starkville High School, I was voted class favorite by my peers. And upon graduation from Starkville High School, I was awarded an athletic scholarship to East Mississippi Community College, where I was just recently named into the college Football Hall of Fame. And upon leaving East Mississippi Community College, I was awarded a scholarship to Arkansas State University, where I graduated in 1981 with a degree in sociology. And that's where I met my wife, Jackie McElroy. She's from Little Rock, Arkansas, and we have 3 kids. Letitia, a 2003 graduate of Starkville High School, a 2007 graduate of Ole Miss, and she currently third-year law student at Mississippi College, where she would graduate this coming May. And my son is Jacoby. He's a freshman at East Mississippi Community College, and Joshua, second grader at Sutter Elementary School. And I returned to Starkville to start my own business. Because I'm self-employed, my schedule will allow flexibility to attend meets and visit schools and meet with the community when needed. I have served in many leadership roles, and I feel I possess qualities in which a good leader should have. I have been very active in the community with the youth by sponsoring basketball, football, baseball teams, and as well as coaching these teams. I attend Austin Church of Christ Holiness, where I serve as a trustee. I am seeking this position because I think I would be a great addition to the school board. I have the essential qualities to be a good, solid member. My qualities include courage, loyalty, understanding, initiative and vision, and making the best choices and the decision for our school and community. I strongly feel that public education is very important with the children in the community, as well as education for the economic development itself. Some of the goals I hope to achieve as a member of this board include have a better interaction with the board and the community, implementing ways to promote academics among our students in the district and getting Starkville School District back to the top district in the state of Mississippi. And as I stated earlier, I would be a great fit for this position. I am a product of the Starkville School District. I have a personal connection with the community and the youth in this community in Starkville. And this type of connection is important, especially regarding school safety in this district. And the school leaders must be people who have relationship with students and parents in order to ensure school safety and other issues within the district. The city of Starkville, as well as the school district, is embedded in my heart. I know I will be a vital and effective force for the Starkville School District, making the best decision and the betterment for the children. Thank y'all.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Mr. Harris, good evening. I have 4 questions. I'm going to ask you the same question I'm asking everybody else. The first question is, the Mississippi statewide accountability system labels schools as star schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing. What is the principals, the superintendents, and the board's responsibility when schools do not perform well?
The board's position is to enforce the policy, and the school system, superintendent should, she should implement the policy, and the principal should enforce them.
Does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should that be placed on the board's meeting agenda for public comments? And please elaborate.
I think it should. I think it's just like this school board here, the city board right here, that they should be allowed at least 3 minutes to speak, and come with the issues, at hand.
Thirdly, are you for or against uniforms for the school district? In your response, please explain your position.
I am against uniforms. I think we should be worried about the academics and the kids get a good education, and I think we need to enforce the policy that we got in place right now.
Finally, do you have an opinion as to whether or not there's any safety issues regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measures do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
I don't really see, a safety issue, I think what we should do, if it is a safety issue, the superintendent, the board, and the community should be able to get together, interact, and come up with the best ways to keep our schools safe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions from the board?
Got one.
Alderman Devereux.
Like Alderman Perkins, I'll ask the same question. Now, I understand and respect the academic side of what the school board does, but what do you see, or how important do you see, and what do you see the role of the school board as far as how it relates to extracurricular activities, whether it's athletics or the non-traditional classroom activities of art, et cetera, all the things that are offered within our school district, that really lend itself not only to quality of life for the students, but to the community as well. And, what are your thoughts on that, and then what do you see the role of the school board in that situation?
I see the role of the school board as, we can do anything to betterment the students. Whatever we can do to make the students successful. I'd rather see the students be successful instead of a dropout rate, so I'm all for it.
Further questions? Alderman Parker.
Mr. Harris, thank you very much for being here. And my question is more about the budget process. And for the city school system is one of the largest budgets in all of Oktibbeha County. And if you could, as far as from a taxpayer standpoint, that's their biggest expense that they have from their taxes. And I guess if you could elaborate a little bit more on your experience in handling budgets and the accountability of budgets and dealing with that much, what is your experience with budgets and that?
Well, by me having my own business, I had to deal with the budget, every year, for its taxes and, with the coming, being the way it is right now, the cuts and all that stuff right there. So I'm kind of used to dealing with a budget to keep my company going.
Okay. We all know that for the school system, there seems to be, for the student that excels, there are many programs out there. I think where the school system needs a little help is where the average to lower student, as addressed by our dropout rate, those are students that seem to get left behind. Do you have any ideas or things that you might can implement that could help those students?
Yeah, what I think we need to do is get the community and the school board more involved with the community. Those kids, like set up workshops or something like that where we can get the parents to come out and respond, you know, and ask questions and get them involved, because a lot of those kids don't feel like they is being involved. They feel like they's left out. You know, that's how lots of people do feel, that it's all about the kids that's gonna make it. And I would be a strong advocate for the ones that won't make it, because I've been there and I know the community, I know them, and I feel like I can go into that community and reach them and talk to them. And that's why I sponsor basketball and baseball, you know, and pave a way for them to get them out of that thinking process.
Thank you.
Further questions from the board? Alderman Vaughn.
Mr. Harris, thank you for being here. I know you're a native of Starkville area. As a school board member, who do you serve?
We serve the community. We serve the community and the whole, everything, the entire, the community, the teachers, whatever it takes to make up the community.
Second question, if appointed, what plans do you have for improving education in the district?
Appointed out, like I say, I want to be able to, the kids that's failing right now, I want to be able to reach them so we can get these test scores up and do the best that we can do for them.
Next question. What standard and procedure should be followed in implementing a school dress code or code of conduct?
I think, you know, the policy that we got in place right now at the high school, I think we just need to carry it on out.
And the last question. What knowledge do you have about the operation of the school system?
I got a good knowledge operator, because I all start with the school board. And after the school board, it's like down to the superintendent, from the superintendent to the teachers, and then the students, and then the community.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Further questions? Are there any further questions? Any further questions? Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Heisel, do you wish to make an opening statement?
I would first like to invite you all to stand and stretch your legs for me.
That sounds good.
Because I know how we felt in the other room, so if you need to stretch, that might be the best way to start off. And that kind of thing that I'd love to make a short statement, if that's okay. Do you mind if I sit? Okay. I wrote a few notes, just because that's how I operate. My name is Eric Heiselt, and I appreciate the opportunity to apply for this position and to be considered. Recognizing that the field of applicants are amazing people in our community. And when I saw the official list, that little fist grabbed my heart of, whoa, when you walk into that room, you think, this is an impressive group. And so I'm honored to be in that group. To cover just a few of the reasons, and I outlined those in my letter of intent as well. My reasons for applying for this position and requesting to be considered are multifold. I've got a number of different places as a stakeholder within the organization of the schools. Primarily, number one is, of course, as a parent. We have 4 children, 3 of whom are in schools currently in Starkville, in the school system. So I'm highly invested in seeing that these schools become that top tier, because these are my children we're talking about. And as the parent, I want to see them have that chance to excel. I've been very active in the schools through the PTA, plus in just different volunteer positions to be in there. And part of that is because as an educator for a number of years in other states, I was always appreciative of those parents who are highly involved. They're the ones that made it more of a community school. And I wanted to be able to now take up my new position as a parent and working as a support for that. I think that one of the important things that the school board needs to be is looking at progressive ways of dealing with the challenges that are presented. We have a lot of fantastic things currently happening within our school district. And I don't know at this level if you're aware of some of the things, but I can summarize a few things I've seen in the last week working in some of the schools. One of my responsibilities with my job at the university is I'm the director of all the K-12 outreach programs that come out of the Bagley College of Engineering. So I currently work with 110 school districts across the state. I'm in classrooms 2 days a week somewhere in Mississippi. And so there are many weeks when I'm calling my children to wish them good night, and I'm in Gulfport, and the next night I'm in Port Gibson, and then I'll be lucky if I'm in Tupelo 2 days later and I have a chance to see my own children. But I'm seeing what's working in some areas, and I'm seeing what challenges other districts are facing that are similar to ours. How do we decrease our dropout rate? How do we make sure that every student is getting access to the best education that's applicable to their needs and to their abilities? And so working in that field and having had my own experience as an educator, I'm able to see, what are we looking at? Are we considering the 90-90-90 approach? Having 90% graduation because of 90% attendance and a 90% passing rate. It's a proven system that works in many urban schools. Have we looked at these kind of things? And those are where I think the school board needs to be an active role instead of waiting to rubber stamp something like a budget, finding ways that are working in other areas, and how can we implement those in our own classrooms. One thing that I think is important for us to look at is the new national standard Common Core system that we are mandated as of next fall to have implemented statewide. That's going to affect our schools. What are we doing proactively to get ready for that, where every Algebra 1 student across the country is going to have the same curriculum now? That's going to be mandated federally if we want to continue to receive money. That's something our school board needs to look at, to be proactive across the state, instead of having to wait for MDE to come in and mandate this. Are we using understanding by design, which is required by our state? Are our teachers using that as one of those progressive issues? So having a background in those, I think, allows me to approach this in this way. But did you know that the Armstrong Math Counts program, those students are going to be representing the entire Golden Triangle in the math competition at the state level at the end of the month? These children are 7th and 8th graders doing trigonometry and calculus. Let's celebrate that, and then let's look at the challenges that are coming. We have students going to national level in history fair, in science fair, all coming from Starkville. So some things are going right. Let's find those, let's celebrate them, and then approach the challenges. And that, to me, is the responsibility of the school board, and that's the role I want to play in this.
Question from the board. Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 4 questions for you, same question I'm asking everyone else. And the first question is the Mississippi Statewide Accountability System label schools as STAR schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing? My question is, what is the principals, the superintendents, and board's responsibility when schools do not perform well?
When we are discovering that accountability measure has put us at a level that we do not feel is where we need to be, the first thing we have to do is to find out where those challenges are coming. Why did we receive that particular ranking? And that doesn't matter what the ranking is. If we are considered top-tier school, what are we doing right to make sure that we continue that? The responsibility of the administration, the leadership, is to disaggregate that data, find out what is going wrong, what is going right, and come up with a proactive way of addressing that issue. If we simply are reactionary, we'll never get ahead. It's about looking forward and identifying the problems, identifying those hurdles, and then attacking them straight on.
Question number 2, does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should there be a place on the board's meeting agenda for public comments? Please elaborate.
I believe that anybody in a leadership position is responsible to the community to which they're serving. Yes, there should be a place for public comment. Yes, there should be something set up in that way where the constituency or the members of the community, those stakeholders, have a way of voicing the concerns that they have. I think there's also a place in school board, as well as any leadership, but particularly school board, we're talking about that, of seeking the input of the employees of the school district rather than assuming they're being represented by one individual on there, and looking at what the student needs are. School boards that I worked with as a teacher always had a student representative, always had a teacher representative on those boards. And I think that's something that will allow input as well.
Question number 3, are you for or against uniform for the school district? In your response, please explain your position.
I am not against the uniform policy.
My question is, are you for or against? I want you to give it on the record, then you can explain it.
Okay. Having taught in both uniform and non-uniform schools, I do not believe it hurts a student's ability to succeed academically by being required to have a standard dress code.
Let me ask
So
you.
that means that I am for the uniform dress code.
Okay, my final question is, do you have an opinion as to whether or not there's any safety issues regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measures do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
Every school, no matter which community you live in, has safety issues. To say there's not would be just an outright lie. Having been in these schools, I do have concerns about access to our school buildings and to our children. I'm concerned that we don't know who construction workers are when they're coming on our campus. I'm concerned when we have other children coming into our campus that we are not aware of. There's a cost-benefit analysis that has to be considered here. I've heard suggestions of bringing in semi-armed guards to work in the schools. Those exist in a lot of schools nationwide. What is the cost to that, and is that an effective way to deal with that issue? I don't know that it is here in Starkville. We have enormously large campuses for the schools. We have very large schools in this district. Safety issues have to be addressed. Whether that means fences is going to have to be an analysis. I don't think that I can adequately say, here's A, B, and C that's going to solve that issue, because with the way that our campuses are situated throughout our city, each school has to be evaluated individually. I am concerned when I drop off our carpool children at Seth, Ward Stewart, Armstrong, the high school, because I can't guarantee their safety once they get out of my car. I think it is a responsibility of the superintendent and the school board, as well as the community at whole, to try to find the best alternatives or the best ways to ensure that safety.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I understand and respect the academic side of what the school board does, but as a school board member, what do you see, or what are your thoughts, and then what do you see the role of the school board in extracurricular activities as far as athletics, the traditional non-classroom activities, whatever those may be that are offered, and that really add a quality of life aspect to not only the student but to the community at large?
To restate your question, make sure I'm answering the question you're asking. What is the role of the school board in those non-academic activities?
What's the role, and then what are your thoughts as far as those supplemental activities in the day-to-day operations of a school?
I think that the additional activities are crucial. That is part of what can inherently invite children into that learning environment. I played ice hockey in high school. Obviously, I'm from the north because we do that. There were years, at times during my sophomore year in high school, the reason I went to school was to maintain my eligibility to play hockey. That is part of it. And as a school board, I think we're responsible for making sure that there's those opportunities, but they need to be full access. They need to be accessible to any student who desires. There should never be a situation where a child doesn't get access for a reason of the socioeconomic status that they have, for the, I would even say their ability to participate. If they're capable, they should be allowed. And one of the things we have to do is keep that in mind, that school is a bigger picture. It's not just what goes on in those periods in that classroom. It is the whole environment. Jane Bluestein has one of the most seminal works on school, community, and culture. And one of the things that we've learned from that work is that having the chance to explore one's own ideas and interests is where education truly happens. And that a lot of times those activities are what lead to that interest.
Further question? Alderman Parker.
Thank you for being here and going through this process with us. The school board has one of the largest budgets in our whole county, and I'm just, if you could answer, as far as dealing with those budgets, what experiences have you had in dealing with budgets and accountability of those budgets, and what you might could do for some programs that fall within that, but mostly accountability, and what experiences you've had with budgets?
Personal experience in budgets, of course, in the office I currently hold in my employment, I have a budget that I have to maintain at all times. I have to report in, I have to account for every penny, because these are funds that have been granted to me either through the MSU endowment process or from the Dean of the College of Engineering. I have to be accountable for every penny cent. And I believe the school board is accountable for that as well. These are taxpayer dollars. There has to be a question that we always go back to when we spend money is, how is this benefiting the educational process of our children? If there is not a direct tie to how that's going to increase that learning experience, we have to question why we're doing it. Not just because it's always been the way we've done it, this has always been earmarked, but if I can't draw a tie to how this is doing, we ask the same thing of our teachers. If you're gonna have this book read by the students, why? And the same thing goes for the dollars spent. How is this benefiting the learning experience of the students?
Okay.
Keeping in mind legislation that requires us to have funding available especially for students with special needs. And so sometimes we have to balance that as well.
Sure. You mentioned earlier about students that are excelling, and I think Starkville does have many success stories of students that are excelling. What I'd be interested to hear is for that average to lower student, that seems to be sometimes where we have a disconnect, as indicated by our dropout rate. What ideas do you have that we might implement to keep those students in school and actually improve those average students and let them be excelling students?
This is a common problem. I've heard it called the 80% problem. We address financially the 10% who struggle cognitively, and we brag the 10% who are excelling cognitively, and we've got that 80% in the middle. What are we doing to serve them? And that's one of those things that we really have to look at, because that's where our dropout rate is going to increase if it's not addressed. One of the things that I think that as a school community we need to look at is investing in all of those students and identifying not just simply at-risk behaviors, but one thing that I did as an administrator was challenge my teachers. We put all the pictures up of all of our students in the school, 3,200 students, and teachers spent time just tagging them with a sticker if they knew something personally about those students. Amazingly, we found we had a large group of students that no one could say they knew anything personally about. When we went to their records, these were our kids who were heading for dropout. We have to invest into our students as a community. And one of the roles I think that the school board has to do is leading in that investment. How can we as a community invest in every student? I worked with a student today, Emmanuel, who's doing his history fair project on the segregation in the AFL during the 1960s and how that was overcome. This student, according to his teacher, has never completed a written assignment. He's an 8th grader. He's repeating 8th grade. Yet he has found this activity of researching something that he's passionate about, of knowing why someone like Mr. Cooks in our community, who played on the AFL during segregation and went through that experience of desegregation, it's important to him now. And now he's willing to do it. We need to find those ways to draw in the students into that learning activities. And it's going to take a little time. It's going to take investment. It can't just be the way it's always been done and putting it in the hands of the students to say, it's their job to come in and learn. Instead, it's our job to find ways to present the information, to give them the chance to inquire and to ask questions, and to truly want to be there.
Thank you.
Further questions? Alderman Vaughn.
Good evening, thank you for being here. I got 5 questions. Are you a native of Starkville area?
I am not.
Number 2, as a school board member, who do you serve?
I serve the students and the community in which we reside and that we're responsible for. But number 1, the students who are in the school.
If appointed, what plans do you have for improving education in the district?
As far as plans, there are things that I have seen that I am concerned about. Teacher preparation and teacher time to learn the new skills. We have teachers who want to learn better ways of teaching, who want to find out how to reach that 80%, find out how they could do that. And one of those things is productive professional development. One of the ways we rob our teachers is what I have heard called drive-by professional development. We give them one day, we talk at them, we tell them go do this, and that's it. Well, if we did that in every profession, if accountants came in one day a year and got to know that's all the experience they have with the accounting software that they're expected to use, they're never going to progress. And so we need to make sure our teachers are fully armed with ideas and ways of knowing there is no magic bullet. Not every student's going to be served by one piece of information. Too often schools and school districts buy a program, whether it be holistic language, whether it be a textbook system, that's been designed for basically one type of learner. Our teachers need to be able to reach all of our learners. And so they have to, that, to me, that's the number one thing, is making sure that we are armed with those tools.
Next question. What standard and procedure should be followed in implementing a school dress code or a code of conduct?
Disregarding what's currently going on, and if I could go back in time, this would be my plan. First thing we do, I don't have a problem with the idea of surveying the community. I think that's an important part. But how accurate are those surveys? We know based on just voting polls, if it is an emotional topic, we will have more buy-in. You're gonna bring it out, especially if it's something where people are feeling that it's going to affect their lives in a specific way. We need to get that feedback, but we also have to go back to what's in the best interest of our children. Will these things happen? So that's where we have to start. Then becomes the fact finding. Can we find information, and we'll use dress codes, proving yes, they have an effect towards positive retention, towards academic performance, towards a positive school culture. That has to be looked at, and the school board is obligated, in my view, to go and do that research independently, not wait for someone to bring it to them. If a topic is brought, the school board is obligated to go and find out. There is no way that a positive and productive CEO of a corporation would simply rely on what's brought to them. They will have to go find their own, and the school board's obligated to do that. Looking at that, again, my background, having taught in both uniform and non-uniform, I know that I could find information both ways. The problem is with research and education, we don't have a control. I can't say, this group of students will go to uniforms, this group of students won't, let's compare their information. Can't really do that. But we could look for, will this result in a better application for our constituency, for our students? If that is found, that as a group that we can say, yes, without question, the evidence points to this would be a positive change, then we have to bring it to the community. So it's the self-study first, then bring it to the community, and bringing it as a rational reason, and presenting the reasons, not a single reason, but the myriad of reasons why this should do. If you're enacting a policy for a one simple reactionary piece, it's not going to be a good policy. You have to have the background of all the different ways that that policy is going to affect our students. And again, being proactive. It will be, I think, acceptable to go out and, for instance, study Oktibbeha County schools who are wearing uniform. Can they show a difference in attitude, in academic performance, in safety? We're talking about a very similar community. We're right here in the same county. That would be a place to start. Finding other communities, Northwest Rankin or Pearl, do they hold a similar constituency, similar demographics, and can they show that it had an effect? Then we self-study, we bring it to the community, and then comes the hard decision of, can I say, yes, this is going to affect students positively? Will it make our schools achieve better academically? Will it allow students to concentrate on what they need to do? Will it make their environment safer? That, to me, is the steps that we go through. We're making a policy decision that's going to affect all these students.
I just forget the last question because you know a lot about the school system because you worked in the school system. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further question? Any further questions? Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Hodges.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
Dr. Remetig, do you wish to make an opening statement?
Well, probably not, because I think everything was in my letter, so I'll go ahead and forego that and let you go ahead and ask some questions.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have 4 questions. I'm going to ask the same as I did for the other applicants. First question, Mississippi Statewide Accountability System labels schools as star schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing. What is the principals, the superintendents, and board's responsibility when schools do not perform well?
What are their responsibilities?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if I really know all their responsibilities of what they're responsible for to administer to the different criterion. I'm glad to learn that. The only thing I know is just that as the teachers, they're just trying to make sure that they pass all the different exams, and they spend all their time trying to make sure that the students are accountable for that. I think to some extent, some of the principals are kind of powerless to make sure that they actually adhere to that. They don't know that the teachers are doing those kind of accountabilities until the tests come out.
Question number 2. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
I think I'm done with that.
Okay. All right. Does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should there be a place on the board's meeting agenda for public comments? Please elaborate.
I think there should be some activity for at least some comments from the community at the board. I mean, I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be. But then again, I don't know what the protocol is for the school board. There is set protocols like for all meetings, so I mean that may have to be modified to allow that. But like I said, I've attended those board meetings, but I don't know exactly what is the protocol for the board itself.
Okay. Question number 3. Are you for or against uniform for the school district? In your response, please explain your position.
Well, I would say I'm neutral when it comes to uniforms. I would personally would want to know the reasons why, you would think that safety is an issue and uniforms actually would be satisfying that safety issue. At least my concerns would be, was that actually something that actually would help, or are there other avenues that need to be done? So, I mean, I could have been swayed either way. Currently, what I've heard has not convinced me that uniforms actually would be a suitable factor for that, to be able to do that. It would help safety in itself.
Let me make sure I understand. You say you're neutral, so if
I started off, I have a neutral position on it, but after going to the forum and reading what I have read, I'm currently not swayed that it's a good policy, especially in the current economic times. But I had no really predisposition of what it should be. I mean, I could have been for it if the arguments led that way. But.
Final question. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not there's any safety issues regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measure do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
Well, yeah, I do think there are some safety issues, and I think one of them are fences. I know when I was president of SUDF, we put a fence running around Evergreen, and that was one of the things I was concerned about. We put that fence there, but I also had as a PTA, and we got the school board to buy into half of it. So that's how we managed to get that. So I think there are other things that could be done to at least do for that safety. I don't think cameras themselves in the schools won't help much, especially if everybody has uniforms on. You need a higher res camera to get the details you want with cameras, and that's a higher cost. So I mean, there are some safety issues. I don't know, all the different safety issues that have gone on in different schools. That kind of has been the lid on what those are, and that hasn't really been presented to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions?
Got one. Like Alderman Perkins, I'll ask the same question. I understand and respect the academic side of what the school board does. But what do you see as the role of the school board, and what are your interests in the non-academic side of things, whether it's athletics or the non-traditional academic, the classroom activities, and that really enhance the quality of life for both the student on campus as well as the community at large?
Well, yeah, I do think academics are important, but I think the arts, and the different other, just, offering the broad spectrum of different type of athletic programs is good. Not just football, baseball, but there are cross-country, golf and all that. I think those are very important aspects.
And what do you see as the role of the school board in those activities?
I don't think school board needs to dictate. I think we need to make sure that we adhere, that we are offering these programs, but I think that should be the athletic director or the different, this school is actually pretty much in charge, but, they are accountable to the school board, make sure that, they're being offered.
Further questions? Alderman Paul.
Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate your application and going through this process with us. The school board has one of the largest budgets in our whole entire county. And I guess if you could speak to your experience with budgets and particularly the accountability of those monies that come. It's the biggest tax expense for every resident in the school district, and I'm just concerned about, explain to your experience with budgets and the accountability of those budgets.
Well, I guess I've done with different budgets that I've done at the university, personally with the projects I've been working on, and they're usually run in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that's a different type of budgetary type of thing, is where, we have deliverables per se, or we're trying to teach things, and, we just trying to, expenditure that throughout the year. But when it comes to budgeting for, different organizations I've been in, like the PTA, the Boy Scouts and all that, is that, you make sure you got enough funds coming in to at least give the program that you want to provide to the kids. So there is a trade-off there on, what you can afford and what is feasible, but you definitely have to be a good steward with what monies you have, especially with that as a trustee of the church. You don't want to spend all your stuff on these big, large line items when you have other things that have to be taken care of. And, at the church, or I would think same thing as a school. I know at the school here, we do have a lot of maintenance that have to be taken care of, and those have to be, dealt with. But then there's other programs that, I know we need to do the funding for the computers and the books, I think are definitely our priority that have to get done. I think it's just all just weighing what you have in front of you, and realizing that, things like this, we're gonna have shortfalls in the future if things keep getting cut. I know the university's been going through it. I haven't had a raise in 3 years, I think. I can't really remember, but I didn't do it for the money. I do it because I like to teach, I like, to do the research.
Sure. We've heard success stories of, I think our school system does a good job for those students that excel. For the average to lower student, it seems to be, as indicated by our dropout rate, sometimes we're losing those students. And for that average student, there's not a lot of programs. Do you have any ideas or implementations that you might do to help that average student or to keep that student from dropping out of school?
Well, I think a lot of it is getting interested in something. We either be athletics or some kind of activity in school. I know when my son was they were doing science in the 8th grade, we did an egg drop contest, like to do with engineering at the university. And, through that, they got to learn the different things of trying to, weigh pros and cons of design and weight and things like that, and to achieve an objective. And, they got into it. They really enjoyed that. And, I guess it really comes down to is getting that average, student at least into something that, they're going to enjoy, and that keeps them engaged. And that's different for each student. You don't know how to get to them, but, I deal with that a lot of times, at the university. What strengths can you, at least tap into to different students and get them, at least interested in a different area.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Vaughn.
Thank you for being so patient with us. I know it's a long night. But as a school board member, who do you serve?
As a school board member, who
Yeah.
do I serve? I would serve essentially the constituents and the teachers. Make sure that, the students that they actually are, get the education that they need and, safe environment and all that. Essentially the mission of the board itself. I think the school board members shouldn't have an agenda. They shouldn't have any political agenda at all. I think they should be, very open to ideas. I have to do that as a researcher, because I may have my own preconceived ideas, but, there are better ideas out there, and that, that I have to probably adopt to get my research done. And as a school board, I think you should do the same thing.
If upon it, what plans do you have for improving education in the district?
I can't say I have any particular plans. I don't know what the levity I have as a school board member would be. That usually is the administrators of the school board, of the district, I think, who have the plans, and we've got to make sure that they are adhering to those and they're accountable to that. So, I don't know if I particularly can impose a direction, but I can make sure that that they know where they're going, and that they adhere to the standards of the state and the nation that be.
Next question, what standard and procedure should be followed in implementing a school dress code or code of conduct?
I just think the teachers, administrators just need to read the manual and be able to adhere to it. I have not seen what some of those kids wear. I'm not there in the classroom. I think they just need to be consistent in applying it and diligent about it if they want to adhere to the dress code. That's a school-to-school issue. I as a school board, I can't see how I can enforce that. So.
Last question, what knowledge do you have about the operation of the school system?
About the operation of the school system?
Yeah.
I can't say I really have any detailed knowledge of the operation of the school system. Only what I've attended at school boards and, what's been reported at, by the different principals at those meetings. I don't know the day-to-day operations of each school. I can't say I do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Are there any further questions? Any further questions? Any further questions? Thank you, Dr. Rivers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Ms. Tomlinson, do you wish to make an opening statement?
I do. Good evening to the mayor and to the board. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long night.
Thank you for your patience.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I am passionate about children, all children, especially our children here in Starkville. From bringing children from Belarus here for medical care for the last 8 years to working as a volunteer in our public schools for the last 15 years, I have tried to give back to the community and make it better and to help children in all that they do. I've worked with PTA, with Parents for Public School, and Starkville Foundation while our 3 children have been in the public schools. I have one son who is still at the high school. From chairing committees that turned a landfill into a playing field at Ward Stewart, to chairing a committee that put a state-of-the-art science lab in Overstreet, we've tried to make our schools better. And my philosophy is that everyone can have ownership in our schools. And if you give everybody an opportunity, they will give back in some small way. So I think all of us can be active in our schools here in Starkville. I have promoted the importance of partnering with the community, the Starkville School District, as well as MSU, by chairing committees that have had the Spotlight Dinner at the MSU campus, and we've raised over $30,000 we've been able to put back into Starkville High School. But more than that, I think that we have tried to promote that we have to all work together, and that's essential if we're really going to have the type of schools that we want here in Starkville. I'm most proud to receive the Mississippi Champion of Children Award and represented Starkville as a first runner-up in the Mississippi Parent of the Year. as an associate professor at MSU for 15 years, and I continue to teach part-time out there now. I'm proud to have received the MSU Woman of the Year Award through the President's Commission on the Status of Women. In addition to being a teacher, I also have experience in management. I've served as the business coordinator for the University Florist, and I understand the importance of budgeting and being financially responsible. I've also served as the executive director of a national foundation that gives out scholarships and grants, and have managed an endowment of over $1 million. I've served in leadership roles on a state level, regional level, and national level, and have been named one of only 27 lifetime fellows of the American Institute of Floral Designers. I give you this information so that you can be assured that I work hard at any job that I undertake. I'm passionate about Starkville, and it's my desire to help Starkville to grow, but also to grow in the right direction. Economic development in Starkville is directly related to the quality of our schools, and we must constantly strive to improve our schools and to pay attention to details that makes our schools stand out. We want our students to be responsible, well-educated citizens when they finish. Our dropout rate must be reduced, there's no doubt about it, and our performance levels must be raised. As citizens of Starkville, I think we all need to be held responsible and accountable for how our students do as they graduate. We're in a tough economic environment, and the school board members must diligently work hard to be progressive, but at the same time make really tough decisions with budgets and things that are coming down the line right now. As a member of the board, I take the responsibility of working with taxes, setting millage rates, and adopting a workable budget very seriously. I always try to see the big picture and look at all sides of the problem before making a decision. I'll ask questions and seek guidance when needed. I also realize this is a position where I need to listen to our citizens here in Starkville. I look forward to working with a very strong superintendent and 2 qualified assistant superintendents. The school board is not here to micromanage, but to support, ask the tough questions, and make the hard decisions. I believe that one of my strongest assets is creating bridges for people to work together successfully, and that's what I would try to do on the school board. This is an important position to be filled, and I know that you're not taking it lightly, that we should end up with the most qualified person. I do believe in our public schools, and I hope that you will consider me for this position.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Ms. Tomlinson, good evening. And I have 4 questions. I'm going to ask you the same question that I have asked the previous applicants.
Okay.
Question number 1, the Mississippi statewide accountability system labels schools as star schools, high-performing, successful, academic watch, at risk of failing, low-performing, and failing. Question, what is the principals, superintendents, and board's responsibilities when schools do not perform well?
They are going to be directly accountable to how the schools do. It's their responsibility to see that the schools do move up a level and do meet the qualifications that are set by the state board. And so it's going to be really tough, I think, with this new performance leveling system, that we are accountable, and it's going to show really quick if we're not meeting the objectives that they've set for us.
Question number 2, does the board superintendent have a responsibility to the community and parents? If so, should there be a place on the board's meeting agenda for public comments? Please elaborate.
I think communication is really important, and I think that we need to listen to what citizens in our town have to say. And I do believe that citizens should be able to speak I do think it needs to be in a controlled manner, similar to what we've seen tonight here at your board meeting. But I do think that we do need to hear what our citizens have to say.
Question number 3, are you for or against uniforms in the school district? In your response, please explain your position.
I'm really somewhat neutral, but I will tell you about the process of it.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I want to do just like I did everybody else. I want you to tell me if you have a motion before you tonight, would you vote for it or would you vote against it? You can explain it.
If I had it in front of me tonight, I would say no. And the reason is that I think the process hasn't worked well, and I think that we have gotten away from the issue of uniforms. And I feel like that if we're going to put before the community a decision such as this, that we've got to prepare them, that they've got to have an opportunity to ask questions on the front end rather than on the tail end of it. I do feel like that the board and the superintendents probably have information that the community may not have. And, but at the same time, I feel like to go forward with uniforms at this point probably would do more harm than good.
Thank you. My final question is do you have an opinion as to whether or not there's any safety issues regarding our schools? If so, what are they, and what measures do you recommend should be taken to correct them?
I do think that there's an ongoing problems with safety. I think we're getting better at safety. I know when I worked with the bond issue with Starkville High School, one of the things that we tried to do was address safety, and I think we did with the new front to the building. Was set up so that anyone that went into the building had to go through either the attendance officer or the receptionist. But at the same time, at the high school, for example, some of the back doors are kept open, and that's got to be taken care of. Fencing might help in some cases. It would be very, I'm sure, expensive to fence in all of the schools. But I do think we can continue to do better jobs. I do think job with safety. I do, however, think that our administration is looking at ways to improve it. And I think as citizens, any suggestions we can have to give to the board would be accepted and appreciated. So I think we're moving forward, but I think we do have some safety issues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Alderman Dillon.
I understand and respect the academic side of things, but what do you, as a potential school board member, see as the role of the school board in non-academic things, athletics, the non-traditional academic, our classroom setting activities? What are your thoughts on those, and then what do you see as the school board's responsibility in those that impact not only the quality of life of the student, but the community at large?
For my role if I were a board member?
As a potential school board member.
Well, I think that we need to support the community. I think that we need to attend things that happen throughout the school district. I'm sure that it's impossible to attend everything, but I would make every effort to be at events that involve the schools, and particularly events that affect the whole district, such as, for example, the forum on the uniforms, the forum that we had on school performance. I thought it was important to be there as a non-school board member, and I definitely think it's important for the school board members to be there.
Further questions? Alderman Parker.
Thank you for being here and going through this process with us here tonight. My concern is about the budget that the school board has. It's one of the largest budgets in our entire county. And could you just speak of some of your experiences with budgets and maybe the accountability? I mean, this is taxpayer money, so the accountability of that money and some experience you've had with budgets.
Well, it is a large budget, and I think that we have to be very financially responsible. We need to look at where waste might be. We need to look at the more efficient ways to do things. I don't know for sure, but I assume in some areas that we just have our hands tied, and that there are some areas you can't cut, where there's some that you can. So my experience is to look at your overall budget, see where you can make cuts when you have to make them, how you can be more creative in being efficient in other areas, and asking lots of questions, you know, from lots of different people. You have to get input from people in certain positions to find out how they would handle things as well.
We've heard success stories of students that excel in our school system, and my concern is that average to lower student, and there seems to be sometimes, you know, we have a high dropout rate. And do you have any ideas or things you would like to implement that would help that average student excel more and that lower student not to drop out?
Well, one, I really like the idea of the studio school that's been bounced around, where we can take those at-risk students and put them in a smaller environment with maybe some more one-on-one guidance and teaching. I think that's a really good idea to do. I also think that it's impossible to ask teachers to teach when they have children in their classroom that go from one extreme to the other. So I would like to see that students are put in a situation where they're on a level playing ground a little bit more. And I think that's helpful to a teacher as well as to a student. I also think that we've got to identify students that need extra help, tutoring, and we need to work with the community and bring in these tutors to help. I'm sure it's an extremely large amount of people that really are needed, because you need that one-on-one, particularly when they're younger. And I'm not in favor of just passing kids on when they don't meet the requirements, because I think it just puts them that much further behind the next year. So I would look at that as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Vaughn.
Mr. Tolman, thank you for considering this position. And I got 5 questions. First one, are you a native of Starkville area?
I'm not a native of Starkville. I grew up in Jackson, but I've been here since 1972.
Okay. Second, as a school board member, who do you serve? If you were selected a school board member, who will you serve?
I serve the children of this area and the citizens of of Starkville. And I've got to look out for these kids and these students and make decisions based on what's best for them in trying to create an atmosphere where they can succeed.
If appointed, what plans do you have for improving education in the district?
Well, I think there's always room for improvement. Right now, I think that the most needed areas is the dropout rate and working on our performance levels. And we've got to find a way to do that, and everybody in Starkville has got to pitch in and help. We can't expect just our teachers to do it. I think we have to expect all the citizens in Starkville to take ownership of our schools if we want them to be at the very top of that performance level.
What standards and procedures should be followed in implementing the school dress code of conduct?
Well, I think once your dress code has been set, then the administration has to follow through and enforce that. And I think maybe that's part of the problem that the uniforms even came up, is that that in some of the schools, maybe the dress code hasn't been enforced enough. And so that's created some problems. And I just think it takes being sure that you're accountable and that you also have a dress code that's doable.
Last question.
What knowledge do you have about the operation of the day school, of the school system,
Of the what?
of the school system?
My knowledge would be as a parent and involved volunteer, from going to school board meetings and forum. I am familiar with that just from the information that's been given to me. I am a teacher, so I do understand the educational part as far as in the classroom. But I also think that this job would be a job in training. I'm sure there's a lot that you learn just by doing it. I'm sure probably many of you felt the same way when you took this position.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Are there any further questions? Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, can we take a brief recess?
Let's go ahead and get the nominations first, and then take a recess. Let me just.
You know,
I'd rather take a recess.
I'd rather take, I mean, can we kind of digest?
May I move that, may I be recognized?
You may.
I move that we take a brief recess.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made to take a recess and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. We'll stand in recess.
We 29.
Oh, yes, but you know.
We're going to do that tonight.
Well, he's got another.
So do we need to do dilapidated property then, if he's not gonna be
The
available?
dilapidated building?
Mayor Wiseman, the reason it's a recess because the school board has to be done on the second Tuesday in February. Okay.
That's right.
But
All right,
floodplain-
we'll now come back to order. And first, let me say, you all were as good in person as you are on paper. You did a phenomenal job. Again, that's the good news for the school district, because the school district is going to be in excellent hands, no matter who ultimately has this position. But the difficult news for the board is that means the decision is very difficult. As I laid out the process at the beginning, what we'll now do is we'll take a paper slip nomination that the city clerk will collect from the board members. And each board member will write one name on the paper slip, and then the city clerk will tally them, and I will announce the tally. Anybody that gets one nomination or more will be invited to come back for a briefer interview process on Thursday. Any follow-up questions that board members have, and that is when I anticipate a final decision will be made. So at this time, just take a moment and write a name, and we can either pass them in, or the city clerk can come and collect them from you.
Do we need to sign our names to it, just a name?
No need to sign your name.
Oh, is that what that thing was? All right. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Nominations are as follows. There are 2 nominations for Ann Carr, 1 nomination for Walter Connolly, 1 nomination for James Cubby Harris, 2 nominations for Eric Heizelt, and 1 nomination for Susan Tomlinson. Thank you very much, and once again, you all are to be commended for taking the step to want to get involved and being incredibly prepared for the discussion tonight. And for those of you that received a nomination, the meeting will resume Thursday, the day after tomorrow, at the Sportsplex Activities Room. That is the old, original part of the Sportsplex. So, thank you very much. And that will conclude the first item under board business. The next matter before you is consideration of repealing and replacing solid waste ordinance 2008-2 and amending the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 94. Discussion from the board.
Yeah, I think I can do that.
Alderman Parker?
I'm sorry,
We're on item C under board business on page 3.
okay, sorry. Well, if there's no discussion, Mayor, I move approval of repealing and replacing the City of Starkville Solid Waste Ordinance 2008-02 and the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 94.
Alderman Parker has made a motion to repeal and replace solid waste ordinance 2008-2 and amending the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 94, as presented. Is that your motion, Alderman Parker?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Parker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Discussion? Alderman Perkins.
No, I want to be recognized when the motion's done.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, is the floodplain time sensitive?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we repeal and replace the City of Starkville floodplain ordinance 2003-03 and amend the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62.
Alderman Perkins has made a motion to repeal and replace the City of Starkville floodplain ordinance 2003-03 and amend the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62, as presented. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Perkins, you wish to speak on the merit?
No, sir.
City Attorney wishes to be recognized.
The motion needs to be slightly reworded. We need 2 motions based on the statute. The statute is 21-13-11. There needs to be a motion to adopt the ordinance and then another motion to put the ordinance effective immediately. Both have to pass by unanimous vote. Both have to state why this has to be effective immediately and also state that it goes toward the public peace, health, and safety or for other good cause in the community.
Alderman Perkins, do you wish to rescind and restate?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We do have a motion to that effect that's been reduced to writing. Would you like to see it?
Yes, sir.
If the board doesn't object, I'll be glad to make the motion.
Well, Alderman Perkins has the floor.
Yeah, I concur with it. I'm just going to let him read it. I'm going to agree to him to read it.
Okay, do you mind rescinding your motion?
Yes, sir, it's rescinded.
Okay, motion is rescinded. Alderman Corr, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I'm going to make 2 motions.
Okay.
My first motion would be that I would move that we approve the floodplain ordinance, number 2010 does anyone know which number this is? I'm sorry. 4.
This one is 4.
Okay, 2010-4, repealing and replacing the City of Starkville's floodplain ordinance, number 2003-3, and the City of Starkville's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62, as prepared by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency, and the city staff members, in order to keep the City of Starkville in the National Flood Insurance Program in accordance with State Statute 21-13-11 of the Mississippi Code of 1972, annotated.
All right, motion has been made by Alderman Corey to approve the proposed floodplain ordinance number 2010-4, repealing and replacing the City of Starkville floodplain ordinance 2003-3, and City of Starkville's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62, as prepared by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency and city staff members with an effective date of February 17, 2010, in order to keep the City of Starkville in the National Floodplain Insurance Program in accordance with State Statute 21-13-11 of Mississippi Code of 1972 annotated.
Second.
That's your motion? And it's been seconded by Alderman Perkins. Alderman Corey, you wish to speak on merits?
No, thanks.
Any discussion?
Is that satisfy the motion?
It does.
Okay.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes.
Mr. Mayor, is there anything else time sensitive?
We've got to move to make it effective.
I have to make a second motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm in a rush. You go ahead. Excuse me.
Alderman Corey, do you wish to be recognized?
Yes, I do. I would move that the previously adopted ordinance 2010-4 go into effect immediately based upon a finding of fact that the immediate adoption is necessary for the public health, safety, and well-being in accordance with State Statute 21-13-13.
And Alderman Corey, have you reduced that motion to writing?
Oh, and, I'm sorry, and in order to keep the City of Starkville in the National Flood Insurance Program in accordance with State Statute 21-13-11.
Okay. I was thinking we had that in writing.
Yes.
Let's see. All right, I'm going to read it since we don't have a complete copy in writing. Alderman Corey has made a motion that the previously adopted ordinance go into effect with the immediate effective date based upon a finding of fact that immediate adoption is necessary for the public health, safety, and well-being in accordance with State Statute 21-13-11. And in order to keep the City of Starkville in the National Flood Insurance Program in accordance with State Statute 21-13-11 of the Mississippi Code of 1972 annotated. Alderman Corey, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Corey, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Now, very quickly, if we want to get to city planners items, the quickest way to do that is to reorder the agenda, placing those items next in the packet, and then when we get through that, we would resume the rest of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we reorder the agenda to move Section 11B, Building Codes and Planning Department, as the next agenda item.
Second.
All right, motion has been made by Alderman Dumas to move item 11B, Building Codes and Planning Department, to the next item on the agenda. Is that your motion, Alderman Dumas?
It is.
Alderman Perkins, do I hear a second?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Dumas, will you speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure passes. Mr. Griffin.
The item before you this evening regards a dilapidated structure located at 514 Mississippi Highway 182 West in Ward 7. Photographs have been included in your packet, and I must state that for the record, the two photos on page 3 located on the back of the item's info packet are not part of the subject property and should be removed from the official record. That's these photos right here. The city's administrative hearing officer held 2 public hearings, heard testimony, and on January 5th, 2010, issued an order finding the property in its current condition to be a menace to the public health and safety of the community, as addressed by the city's Code of Ordinances. As of this date, no corrective action has been taken by the property owners. We received a letter this morning from an attorney representing one of the property owners requesting some time to allow the owners to demolish the structure. City staff requested the board uphold the administrative hearing officer's order and direct city personnel to demolish and clean the property, if not done so by the owners within 10 days. Proper verbiage for the finding of fact and motion has been provided at your seats this evening, accommodating the property owner's request. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Alderman Parker.
So this is where they were disputing ownership. Have they, I mean, I know that's not our issue, but they were disputing ownership, and that's why they wouldn't do anything to the building? Is that
That's part of it.
And you're comfortable giving them, is 10 days enough time to give them? So you're recommending that we give them 10 more days, and after that 10 days, then then we go do
10
it.
days to allow them, and I provided the letter to the city attorney this morning as well, and we feel like that they should be able to obtain permits within 10 days, but also the 10 days will, again, this has been going on for quite some time. If they don't get it done in 10 days, then,
So they'll have to just have a permit pulled is what they'll have to have, is that?
yes, sir, and demolition permit's good for 30 days. Now, they could also pull a permit to rebuild. I mean,
Sure.
they can, that's why I worded it as far as corrective action. Our understanding is that the two parties both agree that it's a dilapidated state and that it would be demolished. Now, they may have a change of mind on that, but however, corrective action, whether that's to rebuild it or to demolish it, and it's looking like it's going to be demolition.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman
I'll
Vaughn.
adopt this motion as is written.
Alderman Vaughn has made a motion. We have the sample. Right here. Here. Alderman Vaughn has moved approval of a finding of fact to uphold the administrative hearing officer's order that real property located at 514 Mississippi Highway 182 West, parcel number 118N-00-131.00, is in such an unsafe condition that it is menace to public health and safety of the community as addressed in Article 3, Division 1, Section 54-51 through Section 54-58 of the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances. The property owners shall obtain the proper permits and initiate corrective action within 10 days. If not undertaken within 10 days, the board directs the city staff to begin the demolition and cleanup of the dilapidated structure utilizing city personnel in accordance with Section 21-19-11 of the Mississippi Code of 1972 annotated. Alderman Vaughn, is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Perkins. Alderman Vaughn, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Mr. Mayor, I move this body stands in recess until Thursday, February the 18th of 2010 at 5:30 at the Sportsplex.
Alderman Perkins has made a motion to recess until Thursday, February the 18th at 5:30 at the Sportsplex Activities Room. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Perkins, you wish to speak on merit?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Without objection, Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you. Item K is time sensitive. It's an agreed order from DEQ. They got it to us today, and it needs to be effective tomorrow. So that's the reason it was on the agenda in the first place in such a long time away. I apologize for that. They didn't agree with it today.
Which one was it?
It's item K, consideration of authorizing mayor to sign an agreed order to DEQ and matter of sewer overflows in the
Carver Drive?
I apologize, but,
Alderman Perkins, you wish to rescind?
Yes, sir.
All right, any further discussion from the, or rather, is there a motion in order from a member of the board to reorder the agenda to place?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we reorder the agenda for the purpose of considering this item that Ms. Brewer just alluded to regarding the agreed order.
Alderman Perkins has made a motion to reorder the agenda to place item K on page 4 next on the agenda. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Perkins, you wish to speak on the merit?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes.
May I be recognized?
You may.
I move that we authorize and empower the mayor to sign an agreed order with Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality in the matter of the sewer overflows near Carver Drive.
Alderman Perkins has made a motion to authorize the mayor to sign an agreed order with Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality in the matter of sewer overflows near Carver Drive. Alderman Perkins, that's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Perkins, you wish to speak on the
sir,
matter?
Your
Any
Honor.
discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes.
Mr. Mayor, anything else time sensitive?
Anything else time sensitive?
Mr. Mayor, I move that this body stands in recess until Thursday, 5:30 p.m., February the 18th, 2010 at the Sportsplex.
Alderman Perkins has made a motion to recess until Thursday, February 18th, 2010 at 5:30 at the Sportsplex. Alderman Perkins, that's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure passes. Thank y'all so much. You did an
Yes.
excellent job.
4240 state. 4240 state.